Chapter 196. Ah Shang and Li Xian clearly noticed it as well. They sprawled on the mountain wall, not daring to move. The giant bird spread its wings and flapped them. Zhou Wen and company immediately felt that something was amiss. They felt a hurricane rise up and sweep their bodies up. Bam! 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 The three of them fell back onto the stone platform and saw stars. It took them a while to stand up. However, when they turned their heads to look at the tree hole, they didn't see the giant bird. They looked around, but didn't find any traces of it. It was as though it had returned to the tree hole. From the looks of it, it already knew that we were here. Since it didn't kill us, why'd it leave us here? Could it be that it treats us as food and plans on keeping us for the new year? Li Xian was still in the mood to joke. I don't know if it's keeping us for the new year, but it must have deliberately left us here, Zhou Wen said. Since it didn't kill us, we still have a chance. Let's think of other solutions, Shang said as he looked around the platform. Since the giant bird had already targeted them, it was useless no matter how careful they were. Zhou Wen also circled the platform to see if he could find anything useful. This isn't bad. Li Xian found a Playboy magazine in the driver's compartment of a truck. Zhou Wen picked up a bottle of drink and saw that it still had more than a month before its expiration date. He opened it and drank as he came to an SUV. The SUV looked very old. All the windows were shattered and the body was severely deformed. The car was covered in mud, and the interior was similar. It looked like it had been weathered by the elements. It had likely been here for a long time. Zhou Wen looked inside and saw a plush doll covered in mud in the back seat. He thought to himself, the owner of this car likely has a child. I wonder what happened to them. I hope they are fine. There was too much mud in the car, and there didn't seem to be anything useful. Just as Zhou Wen was about to turn around and leave, he suddenly saw a stick-like object covered in mud. Zhou Wen reached in and pulled it out. It's really a saber. Zhou Wen wiped away the mud on the outside, revealing the item's true appearance. It was a sheathed saber. The saber was straight, so the scabbard was also straight. Connected to the hilt, it looked like a stick about 4 feet long. After wiping it clean, he discovered that the entire design of the saber was like a green bamboo. The top section of the bamboo was the handle, and the bottom 4 sections were the scabbard. At first glance, it looked like a bamboo stick. In fact, the hilt and scabbard were made of metal and were very heavy. Zhou Wen tried to pull it out, but he couldn't. Zhou Wen, what are you doing? Li Xian ran over and stared at the bamboo blade in Zhou Wen's hand. I found a saber, but I can't pull it out. Zhou Wen couldn't help but be alarmed after failing to pull it out a few times. He was extremely strong. He could easily snap steel bars, but he was surprised that he couldn't pull out the bamboo blade. No matter how I look at it, it looks like a bamboo pole. Where's the saber? Li Xian said as he looked at the bamboo blade in Zhou Wen's hand. No, it's a saber. Its name is Bamboo Blade. When Ah Shang heard their conversation, he walked over and saw the bamboo blade. He asked in surprise, where did you find this bamboo blade? It's in this car. Zhou Wen pointed at the off-road vehicle beside him and said, I wonder if it's rusted inside. I can't pull it out. Ah Shang got into the off-road vehicle and said as he searched, the material used to forge the bamboo blade is primordial gold. Even the scabbard won't rust, much less the blade. This blade has a special design. Just turn it counterclockwise and you'll be able to pull it out. Zhou Wen followed Ah Shang's instructions and turned the hilt. Although it was very heavy, he managed to turn it. When he pulled it out, he immediately pulled out a portion of the blade. The blade was like a deep pool that suffused a chilling aura. The blade was only 2 fingers wide, and the back of the blade was slightly wide. The blade was extremely thin, giving off the feeling that it could easily slice through anything. Zhou Wen pulled out the blade and casually waved it. The blade swept past a car window beside him and sliced it apart. Zhou Wen didn't even feel any resistance from the blade. It was terrifyingly sharp. Isn't this blade so sharp? Furthermore, it's made of primordial gold. Do you have any more? Find me one too. Li Xian was also shocked by the sharpness of the bamboo blade. There's only one bamboo blade in the entire league. Where are you going to find it? Ah Shang crawled out of the off-road vehicle. His hands were empty, clearly indicating that he hadn't found anything. Are you serious? The Yin family has plenty of primordial gold. Isn't it easy to make a blade? Li Xian said in disbelief. Primordial gold is a regulated product. The usage of every gram of primordial gold is recorded. The League is very strict in this area, so it's impossible for the Yin family to use the primordial gold for no reason. Furthermore, this blade wasn't forged by the Yin family. Shang said as he looked at the bamboo blade in Zhou Wen's hand. Zhou Wen handed the bamboo blade to Shang, who carefully looked at the blade and said, "The blade's body is like an abyss with faint blood patterns beneath it. This is indeed the bamboo blade of the four gentlemen blades. I never expected the bamboo blade that has been missing for so many years to be here." "What four gentlemen blades? Why have I never heard of it?" Li Xian asked. Shang didn't answer Li Xian. He held the blade and gently slashed his palm. Immediately, a bloody mark appeared on his palm as blood flowed down the blade, forming a line of blood that didn't drip. "Brother Shang, what are you doing?" Li Xian and Zhou Wen looked at Shang in a daze. A gentleman doesn't fight. If there's a need to fight, blood will definitely be spilled. Therefore, the four gentlemen blades have to see blood when they are unsheathed. Otherwise, it will be disadvantageous to its owner. As Shang spoke, he waved the blade, and the bloodline on the blade was immediately flung away. The blade was spotless like a pool of autumn water. After sheathing the blade, Shang returned it to Zhou Wen. "Young Master Wen, although this blade is sharp, it's really inauspicious. It's best not to use it if possible." Zhou Wen nodded and took the bamboo blade. "Who's the owner of this blade? Will someone come knocking on my door in the future?" Shang shook his head and said, "The person who forged the blade has been dead for many years. The original four owners of the plum, orchid, bamboo, and chrysanthemum blades didn't have a good ending either. Later, these four blades were scattered and gradually disappeared. Their subsequent owners probably didn't have a good ending either. What era are we in? Why do we still believe in such superstitions? Wouldn't we be fools if we don't use such a good blade?" Li Xian said disapprovingly. Shang didn't argue and only asked, "The overseer's father, Old Master Yin, was once the owner of the plum blade." Upon hearing that, Li Xian immediately fell silent. And Tianzua's father, Ouyang Lan's former husband, was once the head of the Yin family with a bright future. However, he had died early due to an accident. His death was extremely pitiful. All the wealthy families in Luoyang knew about this, so Li Xian naturally knew about it. If this was really the inauspiciousness brought about by the four gentlemen blades, it was truly terrifying. Chapter 197. The previous owner of this saber might have been caught by the giant bird like us. There's a high chance that he has been eaten by the giant bird. From the looks of it, this saber is indeed ominous. "Zhou Wen, it's best you throw it away," Li Xian said. To his surprise, Shang said, "With the saber in hand, you're already its owner. It's too late to throw it away now. It's best you take it with you." Zhou Wen nodded without a word. He didn't believe in such things to begin with, so he naturally didn't mind. The three of them searched the platform for a while and found 2 companion eggs in the trunk of the car. However, they were only at the legendary stage. They didn't look valuable. They didn't see the giant bird appear, so the three of them tried to escape from the other side. However, they didn't get far before they felt a gust of hot wind. They were swept back to the platform. This time, they didn't even see the shadow of the giant bird. After that, they tried a few more times and even tried to climb over the mountain to escape, but the outcome was the same. When the hot wind blew, they fell back to the platform. The next morning, before the sun rose from the horizon, the giant bird brought the 6 chicks out of the tree hole and brought them to the top of the mountain. Zhou Wen and company originally imagined that they would fly away like before, but to their surprise, the giant bird only brought the 6 chicks to the top of the mountain. Then the 6 chicks lined up like divers and jumped down from the top of the mountain. As they learned how to fly, they swooped down towards the platform. When Zhou Wen saw the chick rushing towards him, he wanted to hide to the side. To his surprise, he felt a force assault him, causing him to involuntarily face the chick and catch it. Soon, Zhou Wen and company understood the giant bird's intentions. It had actually treated Zhou Wen and company as coolies. It wanted to catch its 6 children while they practiced flying and diving. A day ago, Zhou never imagined that he would be a nanny and sparring partner for the 6 birds. What left Zhou even more depressed was that the chicks seemed to have locked onto him. They flew towards him and rarely flew towards Sheng and Li Xian. Li Xian gloated and said, "Old Zhou, it looks like you are quite popular. No, I should say that you are quite popular with birds. Those chicks like you. If you were that popular with women, you would have been single a long time ago." They spent the entire day practicing with the birds. These guys had extremely strong physiques and talents, but because they had just been born, they could not perfectly control their bodies, so they seemed a little clumsy. However, they improved extremely quickly. In just a day of practice, their control over their bodies had increased significantly. In the morning, they were still flying around unsteadily. Not to mention landing on Zhou Wen's body, they would often rush out of the stone platform. In the evening, the birds could already accurately land on Zhou Wen's head. When the sun set, the giant bird brought the chicks back to the tree hole. Zhou Wen imagined that he could finally relax, but to his surprise, the giant bird flapped its wings and a gust of wind pulled his body into the tree hole. Sheng's reaction was extremely fast as he grabbed Zhou Wen. However, even with his strength, he was unable to hold him back. His legs left 2 long grooves on the stone platform as he was about to be taken out of the stone platform. This bird sure is sinister. It makes us babysitters during the day, and it even makes us food for them at night. Li Xian pounced forward to pull Zhou Wen back. However, it was useless. The giant bird's wings flapped again, sending the 3 of them flying into the tree hole. "We're doomed. We're definitely going to be fed to the birds this time," Li Xian screamed. The tree hole was very deep. When Zhou Wen and company landed on the ground, they felt the force retract. This time, they didn't fall heavily to the ground. "Stop screaming. These birds probably don't eat meat," Sheng said as he sized up his surroundings. "How do you know that they don't eat meat?" Li Xian didn't believe him. "There's no smell of blood here, nor are there any bones. Instead, there are many fruits." Sheng pointed to a corner of the tree hole. "Indeed, there are many fruits piled there. So they don't eat meat. That's good. That's good." Li Xian heaved a sigh of relief. However, Zhou Wen didn't look at the fruits. He raised his head and looked up, his face filled with an odd expression. The tree hole was nearly 100 meters tall, like a huge warehouse. In the air above the tree hole, there was a golden oval object floating. If one looked carefully, they would realize that it was a cocoon formed from thin threads. Zhou Wen had already seen 2 similar cocoons, but the 2 were white, while this one was golden. "No way. There's actually a cocoon here?" Zhou Wen carefully looked at the golden cocoon. The more he looked at it, the more it resembled the 2 he had seen before. It was just that the color was different. Could it be that these dimensional creatures are actually born from cocoons? Zhou Wen found it odd. Why would these different dimensional creatures have a cocoon in their nests? Up to now, among the dimensional creatures that had cocoons, the golden flying ant was the weakest. The other 2 were ridiculously strong. There is no need to mention the dragon-shaped creature wrapped around the stone pillar in Dragon's Well. It was unimaginably terrifying. This giant bird was the same. Sheng was also a top expert at the epic stage, but he didn't seem to be able to put up much resistance in front of the giant bird. Of course, it was also possible that Sheng didn't plan on risking his life until it was a life-and-death situation. Li Xian and Sheng traced Zhou Wen's gaze and saw the golden cocoon. Li Xian said in surprise, "Strange, why is there a cocoon here?" No one could answer him. The giant bird landed with the 6 chicks, causing Li Xian's heart to tighten. He wasn't in the mood to care about what cocoon it was. The giant bird landed on a charred piece of wood and let out a bird cry at Zhou Wen and company, causing their eardrums to buzz. The 3 of them didn't understand bird language, nor did they have the ability to communicate telepathically. They didn't know what the giant bird meant. Just as they were hesitating, they saw the 6 chicks each holding something in their mouths. They twisted their bodies and flapped their wings as they flew in front of Zhou Wen and placed the things in their mouths at his feet. Zhou Wen originally imagined that the chicks were afraid that he would starve to death and that there was no one to spar with them. so they had brought some fruits for him to eat. However, upon closer inspection, he realized that the 6 chicks weren't carrying fruits, but fragments that looked like jade. Each of the 6 fragments had a different shape, but the material they were made of was similar. It was a kind of translucent jade, similar to the color of beige. Why are you giving me this? I'm not a Western dragon, nor am I a woman. I don't like shiny things. Fruits are more practical, Joan thought. Chapter 198. These look like eggshell fragments. Ashung carefully sized up the fragments and said after a moment of thought, "Eggshell fragments." Joan carefully sized up the 6 fragments, and indeed, they looked like the irregular shape of an eggshell after it shattered. Furthermore, the fragments were curved, making Joan even more certain that Ashung was right. There was a high chance that these fragments were the eggshells of the 6 chicks. But why did they bring the eggshells in front of me? Could it be that they want to treat me to eggshells? I can eat bird eggs, but I can't eat eggshells. Joan felt depressed and didn't care if they could understand him. He coughed lightly and said to them, "Thank you for your kind intentions, but I don't eat eggshells. It's best you keep these eggshells." It was unknown if they didn't understand him or if there was some other reason, but the 6 chicks stood in a row in front of Joan and stared at him as though they hadn't heard him. Seeing that they weren't moving, Joan knew that it wasn't a solution to continue this stalemate. Therefore, he picked up an eggshell and said, "I just want one. I'll take it back and slowly eat it." Joan pinched the eggshell and found it smooth and warm to the touch. It was like the legendary warm jade. If he hadn't seen these chicks before, no one would have imagined that it was an eggshell fragment. As Joan spoke, he placed a fragment into his pocket, hoping that he could bluff his way out of this. He never expected it to work. Seeing Joan take a fragment, the other 5 chicks ran back with their fragments in their mouths. Only the chick that had its fragment taken by Joan remained standing in its spot, looking at him in a daze. Joan finally heaved a sigh of relief. If these chicks insisted on making him eat the eggshell fragment now, Joan would have no choice but to fight to the death, even though he knew he wasn't their match. He really couldn't eat it. I wonder what other tricks these chicks have up their sleeves? Just as Joan was pondering over it, he saw the huge bird on the chart would spread its wings. Immediately, a hot wind swept up the trio like a tornado, lifting them into the air and throwing them out of the tree hole. The 3 of them felt like they were riding on a cloud. All they could see was a distorted golden light. When the terrifying force disappeared and the 3 of them fell to the ground, they realized that there was no longer a parasol tree in front of them. Instead, they were on a mountain path. There were still traces of a collision on the mountain path's guardrail. It was where they had parked their car. Li Xian looked around and didn't find any traces of the giant bird. He couldn't help but exclaim in pleasant surprise, "We've returned to our original spot. That giant bird actually let us go." Joan was delighted as well, but when he suddenly heard a bird's cry, he couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. He imagined that the giant bird was here again, but on careful thought, he felt that something was amiss. The bird's cry was clearly very young and didn't have any terrifying might. It wasn't the giant bird's cry, but more like a chick's. Joan looked down and saw a chick standing by his feet in a daze. It was looking at him with its head tilted. Why was this chick swept out as well? Joan was alarmed, but on second thought, he felt that it might not be a mistake by the giant bird. Previously, when the 6 chicks had brought the fragments for Joan to take, he found it odd. Back then, he hadn't thought too much about it, but now that he suddenly saw a chick being sent out, he had many thoughts. Could it be that I was actually choosing these chicks when I took the fragments? Would the chick I chose leave with me? If that's the case, what would have happened if I had taken all 6? Joan reached out and picked up the chick. The chick didn't resist and allowed Joan to hold in his palm. It tilted its head and stared at Joan with its round eyes. "Old Joe, don't tell me the giant bird gave this chick to you. This isn't fair. We did the work together. Why are you the only one with a gift? Brother Sheng and I don't get anything?" Li Xian also saw the crux of the problem. "I still don't know if it's a blessing or a curse." Joan shook his head slightly as he held the chick and shouted in the direction of the mountains, "Divine bird, do you want me to take it away?" After shouting 3 times, there was no response. Zhou had no choice but to take the chick with him. Without a car, the three of them could only walk. Although they could run very fast, to the point of not losing to a car, a human's body wasn't a machine after all. Their stamina was very limited. After running for a long time, no matter how strong a human was, they would exhaust their strength. And in a mountainous wilderness, especially near the Qinling Mountains, if they really ran out of strength, they would be in trouble if they encountered a few dimensional creatures. The three of them didn't dare run too fast. They ran for a while and walked slowly for a while. Asheng had originally planned on taking them to a dimensional zone near the Qinling Mountains, but due to the lack of a car and the lack of signal, he had no choice but to abandon his previous plan and rush to the next city as quickly as possible. Asheng told Zhou that if they didn't arrive at the next city within the predetermined time, the Yin family would send a rescue team to search for them. Therefore, they had to contact the Yin family as soon as possible. The Qinling Mountains were just too mysterious. Although they were only near the Qinling Mountains and hadn't really entered, they had already seen many mysterious things. One night, Zhou and company heard immortal music coming from the Qinling Mountains. It was as though fairies were playing and dancing in the mountains. Although Zhou wanted to take a look, he knew that he couldn't take the risk. Along the way, they saw many plants that they had never seen before. There were mushrooms that were taller than buildings, grass that looked like humans, and all sorts of strange things. And this was only the periphery of the Qinling Mountains. Although they encountered many strange things along the way, nothing unexpected happened after encountering the giant bird. The three of them spent 3 days before finally passing through the Qinling Mountains and arriving at a small city. Asheng contacted the Yin family and reported the situation in time, stopping the Yin family's rescue team that was about to set off. The original plan was to let you go to a few dimensional zones to train, but it's too late now. I've already contacted a plane. It will come to pick us up in a while and head straight to the Holy Land. Asheng said to Zhou and Li Xian after the call. Zhou and Li Xian felt that it was best to head straight to the Holy Land to avoid any more trouble. After witnessing the terror of the giant bird, they didn't dare to casually walk in the wilderness. After resting for half a day, an armed helicopter came to pick them up and took them to a large city with an airport. Then they took a plane to the Holy City. As many areas in the sky were enveloped by dimensional zones, planes couldn't fly freely. Most of the routes that had been used in the past could no longer be used. Only a few areas could be flown through. Now, the airport was taken over by the League government, and the crew members were all military officers. Chapter 199. Holy City was the highest administrative center of the Federation. It was also the center of the world that humans had established after the dimensional storms. The reason it was named Holy City was that it was next to the Federation's Holy Land. Back then, the 6 Federation heroes had obtained powerful physiques in the Holy Land. With unparalleled strength, they were able to suppress their contemporaries and establish a stable regime, allowing humans to avoid many wars and disasters. Zhou and company arrived at Holy City. This was a new city built after the dimensional storms. The architectural style was different from the old cities like Guide City and Luoyang. It looked modern, and statues of the 6 heroes could be seen everywhere on the streets. As heroes who had saved humanity from chaos and disaster, they received the highest honor of the Federation. All the Federation citizens would forever remember their names. However, this wasn't a good thing for Zhou. This was because the descendants of the 6 heroes might very well make life difficult for him. Ignoring the grudges between Tianzhua and the 6 hero families, just the grudge between Zhou and the Cape family would probably not be resolved peacefully. Asheng had already booked a room and arranged for Zhou and Li Xian to stay. Only then did he begin contacting the various matters regarding entering the Holy Land. Choking with sobs, strange novel WWW. As they had been delayed in the Qinling Mountains for a few days, most of the other youths participating in the competition had arrived. Zhou and Li Xian were the last 2. Minister, Zhou has already arrived in Holy City and is staying at Goth Hotel. Liz's eyes shimmered as she clenched her fists. If Liz could tolerate having her primordial energy see crippled. Then Hardadef's humiliation made her wish she could immediately rush over and kill Zhou. I already know, with Ensheng by his side, and since they are nominally invited by the Federation to participate in the Holy Land trials, it's not appropriate for us to brazenly bring Zhou back. Let's do as we previously said. Contact the youths from the other families who are participating in the trials and get them to take care of Zhou in the Holy Land, Qiao Siyuan said. Minister, don't worry. Even if I don't do anything, the other families won't let Zhou off easily. Back then, and Tianzhua crippled that generation of the 6 hero families. Zhou is here, representing the Yin family. Everyone is rubbing their hands in glee. They want to cripple him, just like Tianzhua did back then. Liz said, Zhou isn't a simple person. He was able to defeat John when he used the light of judgment. Such strength is probably something that not many people in the 6 hero families can achieve. Besides, since the Yin family dares to send him here, they naturally have some confidence. It's best you contact the other families to act together to ensure that nothing goes wrong with this plan. Qiao Siyuan wasn't as optimistic as Liz. Don't worry, I've already contacted a few people who have a good relationship with my family to work with John. There won't be any problems. Liz said confidently, this is the Holy Land, not the Yin family's Luoyang. Zhou won't be able to escape this time. Qiao Siyuan nodded slightly and asked after a pause, have you contacted Lance? No, he hasn't been seen recently. I have no idea where he went. I'm afraid he won't return until the day the Holy Land opens, Liz said. Try your best to contact him. If Lance takes action, it will be foolproof, Qiao Siyuan said. On his first visit to the Holy City, Li Xian went out shopping, claiming that he wanted to see how different the Holy City was from Luoyang. However, Zhou wasn't interested. He stayed in his room to game. Zhou used his phone's camera function to look at the bamboo blade and the eggshell fragment, but he didn't discover anything special. The two items couldn't be locked, so they naturally couldn't be stored in-game. Zhou had no choice but to place them in the Chaos Bead space. He originally wanted to use the Chaos Bead's power to raise Chaos's first order to the legendary stage to see what kind of life providence he could obtain. However, the Chaos Bead didn't produce any light or text again. Zhou couldn't raise it even if he wanted to. The chick jumped around on the table. Zhou bought some fruits for it, but he didn't see it eat them. In the past few days, the chick hadn't eaten much or even drank much water. However, it didn't seem weak. It still looked energetic. Zhou originally wanted to grind a few dungeons to see if he could raise all his stats to 20, but the chick wasn't quiet at all. It jumped onto him and kept chirping. Zhou ignored it, but it even jumped onto Zhou's head and pecked at his head with its beak. What are you trying to do? Zhou took the chick off his head and asked gloomily. He originally imagined that he was playing the lute to a cow and that the chick wouldn't understand him at all. But to his surprise, the chick really understood him. It jumped onto the table and used its beak to flip open a magazine. When it flipped to a page, it pressed its claws on it. Zhou looked curiously and saw that the chick's claws were pressing on an advertisement. And the content of the advertisement was an auction of companion eggs. You want to eat this? Zhou asked the chick in shock. The chick could understand him as it immediately nodded. I don't have that. There's a legendary companion egg. Make do with it. Zhou took out a legendary companion egg and placed it in front of the chick. It was something he had found in the crappy car on the stone platform. Seeing the chick's look of disdain, Zhou added, I don't have the money to buy that rare epic companion egg for you. Don't even think about it. Make do with this one. If you don't eat it, you won't even get this one. Zhou lost any interest when he saw the many zeros on the starting price list. Even he didn't need such a good companion beast, yet the chick still wanted to eat it. It was a little too whimsical. The chick glared at Zhou before helplessly lowering its head to peck at the companion egg. It pecked at it from time to time, looking like it was very unwilling to eat it. Zhou had no choice. It was already quite painful for him to take out a legendary companion egg for it to eat. It was impossible for him to obtain an epic companion egg. After resting for 2 days, Asheng took them to the entrance of the Holy Land to register. When they arrived, many young people had already completed their registration. When Zhou went to register, The official in charge of the assessment said the words Luoyang's and family. All the young people cast their gazes at Zhou. A few of them were even rubbing their palms together. John, who was standing in the crowd, stared coldly at Zhou when his killing intent flashed in his eyes. Old Zhou, it looks like we are very popular. Li Xian also noticed that something was amiss, but he deliberately said the opposite. Chapter 200. It's indeed very popular. I'm just afraid that their enthusiasm will be unbearable, Zhou once said indifferently. The Yin family actually didn't send in Jing. What's the meaning of finding an outsider? Are they afraid? A cold-looking black-robed youth said. The Yin family sure is smart. They didn't dare send their own people, so they found an outsider to vent our anger. Another handsome blonde youth also had a look of disdain. Apart from in Tianzhua, it looks like the Yin family doesn't have anyone else. They actually found an outsider to enter the Holy Land. I feel sad for the Yin family. Zhou knew that he wouldn't have it easy this time, just by looking at the number of youths speaking. Young Master One, if you don't wish to participate, it's not too late to back out now. Madam instructed you to act according to the circumstances. You can't force it, Sheng whispered to Zhou. Since I agreed to come, I can only give it a try even if it's a mountain of blades or a sea of flames. There's no reason for me to return now. Although Zhou made it sound nice. In fact, if it wasn't for the fact that the special physiques could raise his physical stats, he wouldn't have been willing to get involved in this mess. Of course, he had to return the favor. No matter what, he had to enter the Holy Land to take a look. Ignoring the mockery of those people, Zhou kept his gaze on the so-called Holy Land, hoping to find the tiny palm symbol. The so-called Holy Land was different from what Zhou had imagined. There were no magnificent ancient buildings, nor was it a paradise that looked like an immortal paradise. In a desolate desert, there was an ancient and dilapidated stone platform. The stone platform was hexagonal, and there was a stone pillar at each corner. The 6 stone pillars were engraved with different patterns. Even the carving techniques and styles were different, as though they were the work of 6 different craftsmen. Unfortunately, Zhou didn't see the tiny palm symbol after using Truth Listener to observe for a while. Shut up. This isn't a market. Whoever spouts nonsense will be disqualified. The official stopped the crowd with a cold voice and continued. I believe your family has already told you about the rules of the Holy Land before you came. However, I still have to repeat it. Everyone who enters the Holy Land is doing so voluntarily. If any accidents happen in the Holy Land, it has nothing to do with the organizers of this trial. In other words, even if you die in there, no one will have to take responsibility. With that said, the official looked at Zhou and continued. If anyone wishes to withdraw now, you can apply immediately. There's no need to enter the Holy Land. Once you enter the Holy Land, you have to be responsible for all your actions. You have to seek your own fortune. Everyone knew very well that the official's words were directed at Zhou. With so many people targeting him, Zhou probably wouldn't have an easy time after entering the Holy Land. The chances of him dying were much higher than others. Seeing that Zhou had no intention of withdrawing, the official continued. Since no one withdraws, this year's holy battle will officially begin. In a while, the companion egg market will be opened. If anyone needs a companion egg, they can purchase it. In the next 24 hours, you can enter the Holy Land at any time. As for whether you can leave the Holy Land alive, it will depend on your luck. After the official said that he got someone to open the trading market, many merchants set up their stalls, and there were all sorts of companion eggs on them. They were basically at the legendary stage. Zhou saw a few brands he was familiar with. They were all famous companion egg retailers in the Federation. Young Master One, feel free to choose whatever companion egg you need. Madam has already prepared enough money. It should be enough to buy all the companion eggs you need, so you don't have to worry about money. Shang said. There's no need. I'll just use my companion egg, Zhou said. Although the number of companion beasts a person could obtain was limitless, having a large number of companion beasts wasn't conducive to command. If companion beasts were to fight by themselves, it would be fine if they had high intelligence, but most companion beasts didn't have high intelligence. If they were to attack by themselves, they would be a mob. Not only would they not be able to play their intended role, they might even hinder each other. Therefore, most people would focus on training a few companion beasts. It was best if they could use them as they pleased. The companion beasts on Zhou were all ones he was familiar with. Furthermore, they were considered top-notch at the legendary stage, so it was enough. Madam is right. You really aren't willing to buy companion eggs. As Ah Sheng spoke, he took out a box and handed it to Zhou. At the same time, he said solemnly, "Before she left, she specially instructed me to hand it to you. Madam said that you can choose not to accept the other companion eggs, but this was something she obtained from a dimensional zone in the past. She wants you to accept it no matter what. Otherwise, when you return, she will make you eat with her every day. She will even get Miss Jing to accompany you." "Sis Lan, you're very thoughtful." Zhou didn't reject her and took the box. He didn't like the siblings, but he didn't reject Ouyang Lan. Since Ouyang Lan had said so, Zhou didn't reject her. When he opened the box, he saw a black companion egg the size of a fist. It looked like metal, but it also had the luster of jade. "What companion egg is this?" Zhou looked inside the box and saw no information card. "Madam didn't tell me. She only said that you would know after you hatch it," Shang said. Zhou nodded, but he didn't immediately hatch it. All he did was put it in his backpack before saying to Ah Sheng, "I'll accept the companion egg. I'll find a chance to hatch it in the future. Don't worry." Zhou had a Dao body, so he recovered his primordial energy extremely quickly. He could hatch a legendary companion egg at any time, so he didn't have to worry about the danger of expending too much primordial energy. "All right, now that your matters have been resolved, old Zhou, since you aren't buying companion eggs, accompany me to take a look. I don't have as many excellent grade companion eggs as you. This is a good opportunity. Who knows, I might be able to get a few excellent grade ones." Li Xian pulled Zhou toward the trading market. Li Xian's words weren't wishful thinking. In fact, as long as one had enough money, one could indeed buy rare legendary companion beasts here. In order to leave an impression on these youths who could lead the future of the era, the various companion beast merchants had taken out quite a number of rare, excellent grade companion eggs. Zhou strolled around with Li Xian and couldn't help but be alarmed. He had never heard of many of the companion eggs here, but from the introductions, many of them had very useful abilities. They were in no way inferior to the mutated, demonized general before it was synthesized. The companion eggs here were basically at that level, and the prices were astronomical. They were at least twice as expensive as the typical companion egg shop. Even so, there were still many youths who were preparing to enter the Holy Land. They spent large sums of money without batting an eyelid, as though they weren't spending money. "Thunder God General." There's actually a Thunder God General here. Suddenly, a voice sounded, attracting many people to watch. Chapter 201. The three words, Thunder Divine General, seemed to have infinite magic power. Many young people were attracted by it. Zhou and company also went over to take a look. After all, a companion beast like Thunder God General was just too famous. It had the reputation of being the best offensive pet at the legendary stage. It had powerful offensive abilities, be it in its pet form or companion form. Thunder God General was most famous for his primordial energy skill, Thunder God Augmentation. He could use the void lightning to augment his body, bringing with him infinite lightning might to fight enemies. Every strike was accompanied by terrifying lightning powers, making it extremely terrifying. Furthermore, even when he was in his companion form, Thunder God Sword, Thunder God Augmentation could still be used. Even someone who hadn't cultivated a lightning elemental primordial energy skill could still produce a sword beam with lightning powers when using the Thunder God Sword. Thunder God General's reputation as the best offensive pet at the legendary stage wasn't for nothing. However, that was only if he had Thunder God Augmentation. However, Thunder God General had a total of 4 skills, so even if he hatched Thunder God General, he might not have Thunder God Augmentation. Without Thunder God Augmentation, Thunder God General was just an ordinary legendary companion beast. It had nothing to do with the best offensive pet at the legendary stage. Therefore, whether Thunder God General was worth anything depended on whether he had Thunder God augmentation or not. Unfortunately, all the companion eggs sold here were companion eggs. Even if one had X-ray vision, it was impossible to tell the stats and skills of the companion beasts inside. Therefore, there were many onlookers, but none of them were willing to pay for it. The Thunder God General Companion Egg was priced at $2 million. This price to buy the best offensive pet at the legendary stage was definitely not considered expensive. However, if Thunder God General didn't have Thunder God augmentation after it hatched, it would be worth about $100,000 at most. Spending $2 million on it was undoubtedly a waste. Therefore, many people were watching. The price was a little subtle. It made people want to buy it, but they also felt the pinch. They felt indignant to give it up. After all, Thunder God General Companion Eggs were very rare. Zhou, when pretended to take a picture with his phone and took a look at the Thunder God General Companion Egg stats. He realized that it was a dual-skill Thunder God General. One of its skills was Thunder God Augmentation. If it's General Thunder God with the Thunder God Primordial Energy Augmentation, $2 million would be worth it. I'm just afraid it's not. Spending $2 million on trash would be a huge loss. Li Xian was somewhat tempted. If I knew that it had the skill of Thunder God Augmentation, would it still be up to people like you to criticize it? The golden-haired youth curled his lips in disdain. Strange. Why would there be dogs barking in the holy city? Li Xian asked Zhou when in surprise. Perhaps someone's dog wasn't tied up properly and ran out, Zhou added. The blonde youth's expression immediately darkened, but he did not turn hostile. He only said coldly, "Are the people of the East District so uneducated? The upbringing of us from the East District is only left for the cultured," Li Xian said, unwilling to be outdone. "Very well. I won't bicker with you. When we enter the Holy Land, we'll settle the score," the blonde youth said expressionlessly. "I'll accompany you to the end." After saying that, Li Xian ignored him. He looked at the Thunder God General Companion Egg and said to Zhou Wan, "Unfortunately, Wang Lu isn't here. Otherwise, with her luck, she would definitely be able to get Thunder God Augmentation to help me buy it. It's only $2 million. It's not a huge sum for you. It's good to make a bet. If you win, you can get the best offensive pet at the legendary stage. That won't be something that can be bought with $2 million. Zhou Wan secretly added fuel to the fire, hoping that Li Xian would buy the Thunder God General. He already had the banana fan and had picked up a bamboo blade. He didn't lack weapons. As for offensive pets, his mutated, demonized general was in no way inferior to the Thunder God General, so there was no need to buy it. All right, let's make the bet. Li Xian gritted his teeth and bought the Thunder God General Companion Egg under everyone's gaze. $2 million to buy a Thunder God General Companion Egg. There's so many ballers in a remote city. Someone mocked Li Xian. Although the Thunder God General Companion Egg was rare, the market price was only $400,000 to $500,000 due to the relatively low chance of dropping Thunder God Augmentation. $2 million was indeed too expensive, so no one bought it despite so many people looking. However, Li Xian didn't mind. He went to the other stalls with Zhou Wan and Ah Sheng. He had brought quite a lot of wealth this time, so he wasn't stingy with money. He bought several legendary companion eggs in a row. "You bought so many companion eggs. How do you have the time to incubate them?" Zhou Wan frowned. "If I can't incubate them outside, I'll bring them into the Holy Land. After all, we have to stay in the Holy Land for at least 10 days. There will be time when the time comes." Li Xian seemed to have a card up his sleeve, but he changed the topic and said, "However, I'll be incubating that Thunder God General before entering the Holy Land. I'm just too curious. I wonder if he has the Thunder God Augmentation skill." There were rooms prepared by the League government beside them. Li Xian and company requested a room and began incubating the Thunder God General Companion Egg. Zhou Wan already knew the outcome, so he wasn't too concerned. He sat down on the sofa in the living room and took out the companion egg that Ouyang Lan had prepared for him. He used his mysterious phone to take a look. Gold Armored Beast, Legendary Life Providence, Steel Guardian Strength, 19 Speed, 11 Constitution, 20 Primordial Energy, 12 Talent Skill, Tempered Steel Companion Form. Armor, just by looking at its stats, One could tell that this companion beast was definitely an excellent grade legendary companion beast. Furthermore, it had extremely strong defense. It was very likely not inferior to the three-eyed golden warrior. Most importantly, the gold-armored beast's companion form was armor. This was clearly given to him by Ouyang Lan to protect his life. Li Xian ran out of the room with a gigantic sword surrounded by lightning and shouted excitedly, "I hit it! I hit it! I never expected that Li Xian, would have such a day. Old Zhou, my Thunder God General has two skills. One of them is Thunder God Augmentation. Don't tell me you want the entire world to know that you have a real Thunder God General?" Zhou said speechlessly. So what? Although Li Xian said that, he quickly put away Thunder God General. Without anyone knowing, Thunder God General was an excellent trump card. The two of them made some preparations. After bidding Shang farewell, they prepared to head to the Holy Land's entrance. "Let's go later. We'll enter when the 24 hours are almost up. This way, we can avoid meeting most people. They won't wait that long in order to vie for the qualifications," Shang said. All right. Zhou was very patient and wasn't in a rush. Although Li Xian didn't think much of it, he still waited patiently for Zhou to join him. Zhou had previously told Li Xian not to enter with him, lest he be hated by the youths of the six hero families. However, Li Xian didn't mind at all. He only said that since they came together, they naturally had to enter together. Chapter 202. The way he entered the Holy Land made Zhou doubt life. He and Li Xian stood on a stone pillar that descended like an elevator. Zhou originally imagined that the Holy Land was underground, but when the stone pillar descended to an unknown depth, Zhou suddenly felt nothing beneath his feet. Then, he realized that he was in the air. There were misty white clouds around him, and beneath his feet were mountains and rivers. How is this possible? I clearly sank underground just now. How'd I end up in the air? Zhou was alarmed as he sized up the land below. Soon, he realized that it wasn't the holy city's territory. There were no mountains near the holy city, but there were endless mountain ranges below. Li Xian didn't have the God-fiend life providence, nor did he have the ability to levitate. Therefore, he didn't size up his surroundings like Zhou. He summoned a giant eagle pet and landed on its back. At the same time, he flew towards Zhou and pulled him onto its back. Magical, right? This is the Holy Land, a holy place. No one knows where the Holy Land is, but it's definitely not underground, Li Xian said as he looked at the surrounding mountains and rivers. Which holy temple do you want to go to? Zhou asked. I cultivate the invincible Khanate divine art. This primordial energy art corresponds to the Khanate infinite constitution. I want to go to the Khanate holy temple. Li Xian asked, then family probably got you to cultivate the sun strafe art, right? In that case, you should go to the sun god temple, but your primordial energy doesn't look like it's the sun strafe art. I haven't cultivated the sun strafe art, so it doesn't matter where I go. Since you're going to the Khanate holy temple, I'll try my luck elsewhere. Zhou naturally wasn't willing to vie with Li Xian for the opportunity. Every physique would only choose one person. If Zhou were to snatch it, Li Xian would definitely be gone. All right, where shall we meet later? Li Xian asked. I haven't decided where to go for the time being. If there's nothing special, let's meet again after we leave. If Zhou wanted to snatch the special physique, he would probably have to fight the youths from the six hero families. He wasn't willing to involve Li Xian. In that case, I'll accompany you to find a suitable holy temple. After all, the test will last 10 days. It doesn't matter when we go. I'm in no rush, Li Xian said with a smile. Seeing that Li Xian insisted on joining him, Zhou had no choice but to say, then let's head to the Khanate holy temple to take a look. All right, Li Xian didn't stand on ceremony as he got the eagle to fly east. Not long after flying out, he saw more than 10 people riding flying mounts. Zhou still remembered the person in the lead. It was the Cape family saint, John. Zhou, do you think you can escape this calamity just because you came in so late? Hardadef rode over on a flying lion and stared coldly at Zhou. As they spoke, The dozen or so people had already surrounded Zhou Wen and Li Xian from all directions, making it difficult for the giant eagle to rush out. All it could do was constantly circle in the middle. "John, if you want to fight again, I'll accompany you anytime." Zhou Wen gave Li Xian a look. Li Xian immediately understood and controlled the giant eagle to land on the ground. "Aren't you too naive to want to run?" Hardadef sneered and gave the order. More than 10 companion beasts attacked at the same time. Without a word, Zhou Wen summoned the banana fan and sent a grandine wind at Hardadef. "I wasn't prepared the last time, allowing a sinister villain like you to sneak up on me with a companion beast. This time, you won't have another chance." Hardadef was clearly prepared. Seeing Zhou Wen's grandine wind approaching, he wasn't anxious at all, nor did he have any intention of dodging. When the grandine wind came in front of Hardadef, it seemed to encounter an invisible barrier. It spat out from both sides of Hardadef, failing to injure Hardadef and the lion beast he was sitting on. Zhou Wen was slightly surprised as he found it odd, but he didn't have the time to think about the reason. The attacks of the other dozen or so companion beasts had already enveloped him, sealing off all his and Li Xian's paths of retreat. Zhou Wen was just about to risk his life when he suddenly heard a young bird's chirp. It was the yellow-feathered chick. This fellow had been following Zhou Wen and standing on his shoulder. At that moment, with its cry, more than half of the dozen or so flying pets suddenly lost control and flew around like kites with their strings cut. Zhou Wen took a careful look and knew that it was definitely the work of the yellow-feathered chick. The companion beasts that flew around were all birds. Only a few, like Hardadef's flying lion, weren't affected. The other party's formation was in chaos. Although a few people still attacked, there was already an opening. Li Xian controlled the giant eagle to rush out of the encirclement and quickly landed on a nearby mountain. "Chase!" Hardadef gritted his teeth and chased after him. The dozen or so disciples of the 6 hero families also followed closely. "Hardadef, are you really going to fight me to the death?" Zhou Wen stood on the giant eagle's back and asked Hardadef, who was chasing after him. "You don't have to die. We are very fair. Back then, Tianzhua injured someone from our family. Now that you are representing the family, we are very fair. We will only cripple your primordial energy C and cripple you," Hardadef said coldly. "Back then, Tianzhua had already crippled your family once. Don't force me to do the same thing," Zhou Wen said as he looked at the approaching Hardadef. "Haha, do you really think you are in Tianzhua? You only represent the family. Your name isn't in Tianzhua. The pet you rely on is completely useless against me. Why do you have to be so arrogant in front of me?" Hardadef held his sword and began condensing light of judgment. He was prepared to finish off Zhou Wen and company in midair, not giving them a chance to escape to the ground. Zhou Wen didn't say anything else. All he did was take out the bamboo blade. With one hand holding the scabbard and the other holding the hilt, he said to Li Xian behind him, "Leave first." Then, he leaped up and flew towards the charging Hardadef. "Old Zhou, what are you doing?" Li Xian was alarmed. He wanted to stop Zhou Wen, but it was too late. Courting death. Hardadef knew that fighting in the sky without a flying mount was equivalent to sentencing him to death. Without any hesitation, he slashed out with the sword in his hand, transforming into a gigantic sword beam that slashed at the pouncing Zhou Wen. The few youths behind him who weren't flying mounts also used their own primordial energy skills to attack Zhou Wen together with Hardadef. Instantly, several beams of light crisscrossed, sealing off all of Zhou Wen's possible paths. Ignoring the fact that he was in the air, it was probably difficult to dodge even on land. Chapter 203. Zhou Wen, you won't be able to escape today. I'll return the humiliation you suffered at Sunset College with interest. Hardadef slashed down with the sword of judgment in his hand. More than 10 companion beasts also spewed out all sorts of light bullets. Together with the strength of more than 10 people, they surrounded Zhou Wen in midair. It looked like Zhou Wen had no chance of escaping. Zhou Wen's expression was different as he constantly rose with bamboo blade in hand. At the instant the light of judgment and many attacks were about to land on him, Zhou exerted strength in his feet, as though he had stepped on an invisible staircase in the air. His speed increased explosively. Furthermore, he changed his trajectory and dodged Hardadef's light of judgment. In the next second, Hardadef and company thought that their eyes were playing tricks on them. Hardadef was right. Zhou was indeed unable to escape even if he had wings. Even a real bird probably wouldn't be able to escape the encirclement. Furthermore, Zhou didn't have wings on his back, but he moved in the air as though he was walking on flat ground. It was as though wherever he stepped, there was flat ground everywhere, allowing him to borrow strength at will. Zhou moved strangely in the sky, passing through Hardadef and company's encirclement in an impossible situation. Like a ghost, he charged in front of a young man riding a bird. The young man wasn't a weakling either. He drew his saber and slashed at Zhou, his powerful battle aura condensing into a corporeal saber beam. Zhou's body spun strangely like an eagle. As he dodged the attack, he brushed past the bird. The bamboo blade was instantly unsheathed and flashed like a cold beam of light. After Zhou rushed out a few meters, the bird on his back suddenly split into two as blood splattered across the sky. Instantly, Hardadef and company felt a chill run down their spines. It wasn't that they had never seen people with better movement techniques and saber techniques than Zhou, but in the sky, he could fly freely without any external help. Such an ability was just too terrifying. Fighting such a person in the sky was no different from courting death. Unfortunately, they realized it too late. Zhou was like a ghost in the sky. As his figure flashed, he slashed out again and again with bamboo blade. His target wasn't those people but their mounts. Just as Hardadef had said, fighting in the sky without a mount was equivalent to dying. Those who relied on their mounts clearly couldn't be as agile as Zhou. It was difficult for them to dodge, so they watched helplessly as their mounts were killed. Blood filled the sky, and broken feathers fell like snow. The young man who had his mount cut off screamed and fell to the ground. "Go back to the ground," John shouted loudly, feeling extremely vexed. He originally thought that killing Zhou when in midair was a foolproof plan, but who knew that it would become their greatest disadvantage? Screams came one after another. Some people fell on the rocks, and their legs were broken. Only a few people with backup flying pets and flying equipment were able to survive. Thankfully, these fellows were from the 6 hero families. They were the descendants of the biggest, wealthy families in the Federation. They had quite a number of good items on them, so none of them fell to their deaths. Only a few of them had been pulled over to make up the numbers, so the fall was rather tragic. Hardadef desperately controlled his flying lion to land on the ground, but Zhou was too agile in the sky. He managed to behead the flying lion with one strike. Hardadef was extremely infuriated as a pair of snow-white wings appeared on his back. However, he didn't dare charge at Zhou as he sped up to land on the ground. Even with wings, Hardadef didn't dare fight Zhou in midair. The flying ability of his wings was on a completely different level from Zhou's aerial combat ability. How could Zhou let him off? His saber was like a rainbow as he slashed at Hardadef again and again. Although he failed to kill Hardadef, he managed to sever one of his wings. Hardadef immediately lost control of his body and fell to the mountain below, nearly breaking his bones. Lixian was dumbfounded as he couldn't help but laugh out loud. Indeed, it's impossible to escape. Hardadef, you really are a man of your word. Zhou had no intention of letting them off. He charged straight for the mountain and landed on the mountain peak. Those people had suffered greatly just now. They felt that they had suffered because they couldn't move freely in the sky. Now that Zhou dared to come down, how could they let go of this opportunity? They immediately surrounded him. A burly man held a huge shield in one hand and a huge hammer in the other as he charged at Zhou. Zhou didn't draw his saber. With a backhand, he struck out with the Grandine wind. The might of the banana fan erupted, sending the man flying with his hammer and shield. With a bang, the man slammed into the mountain wall like a cannonball, creating a crater. His hammer and shield flew out of his hands, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His hair and eyebrows were covered in a layer of frost. After struggling a few times, the man failed to stand up. Indeed, Hardedef has something that can restrain the Grandine wind. That's why he isn't affected by it. After figuring this out, Zhouwen switched his primordial energy art to a Tao Sutra. His life providence also became a Tao body that could infinitely recover primordial energy. Seeing a few more people rush over, Zhou fanned again, sending them flying. All of them fell to the ground with broken bones as they rolled on the ground screaming. More than 10 people were finished in just a few fan strikes. Seeing that the situation wasn't looking good, Hardedef turned around and tried to escape. "Didn't you want to fight me?" Zhouwen obviously wasn't willing to let him off. The bamboo blade slashed at Hardedef's back with a cold beam. Hardedef raised his sword to block, but the sword formed from a legendary companion egg was sliced apart by the bamboo blade. The blade didn't stop as it slashed to Hardedef's armor, leaving a foot-long mark on it. Blood immediately gushed out. Hardedef's expression changed drastically. As he retreated, he summoned his companion beasts to block Zhou. Unfortunately, his mind was in a mess. He had no intention of controlling the companion beasts to fight Zhou. All he wanted was for the companion beasts to block Zhou so that he could take the opportunity to escape. The bamboo blade in Zhou's hand flashed as the legendary companion beasts were slashed cleanly. Before Hardedef could run far, Zhou's palm struck him in the back, causing him to spew out blood as he fell to the ground. Although it took a long time to describe, it only took a moment for more than 10 people to fall to the ground. None of them could get up. "Kill me if you have the guts," Hardedef shouted angrily when he saw Zhou step on his chest. "Wouldn't killing you be letting you off too easily?" Zhou stabbed out with the bamboo blade in his hand, piercing through Hardedef's primordial energy sea. "Zhou, I'll fight you to the death." Hardedef howled crazily in pain, wishing he could devour Zhou's flesh and blood. "You aren't qualified," Zhou said coldly. He brandished the bamboo blade again and sliced open Hardedef's armor. He saw a strange necklace around Hardedef's neck. The necklace was embedded with crystals, and in the crystals there seemed to be wind flowing. It formed a vortex inside the crystals, making it look very strange. From the looks of it, this should be the thing that made the Grand Een wind lose its effects. Zhou flicked his bamboo blade and snapped the necklace's clasp, causing it to land in his hand. Chapter 204. Is that the goddess of wind's guardian? Li Xian's eyes lit up when he saw the necklace. He couldn't help but exclaim, "Do you know what this is?" Zhou asked as he held the necklace. "I've only heard that there are extraordinary treasures in some dimensional zones. Those treasures have magical powers. The goddess of wind's guardian is one of them. Legend has it that it's a magical necklace with the power of the wind. Wearing the goddess of wind's guardian allows one to be immune to any wind elemental damage. However, according to what I know, the goddess of wind's guardian should belong to the Kamal family. Furthermore, it's unique. I wonder if this is true or not," Li Xian said. "It doesn't matter if it's true or not." Zhou stuffed the necklace into his pocket. This item could restrain the Grand Een wind, so Zhou naturally wouldn't let anyone else have it. John, who was being stepped on, vomited blood in anger when he saw this scene. The necklace was indeed the goddess of wind's guardian. In order to restrain Zhou's banana fan, Senator Cape had paid a huge price to borrow it from the Kamal family. Now, it had been snatched away by Zhou. Zhou ignored Hardedef and walked towards the others with bamboo blade in hand. He ignored their pleas or insults and pierced through their primordial energy seas with each strike. Many people fainted, but it was unknown if it was due to pain or anger. "Li Xian, help me search." Before they came, they should have bought quite a number of companion eggs at the market. "See if they have any on them." As Zhou spoke, he personally took action. He stripped the clothes of a young man beside him and found 2 companion eggs. Li Xian didn't stand on ceremony as he searched the bodies of the others. Soon, the 2 of them found 14 companion eggs. They were likely at the legendary stage. As for what species they were, they really couldn't recognize them. John and company gritted their teeth in hatred. Back then, Tianzhua had only crippled them and didn't do anything else. However, Zhou Wen and Li Xian were even more ruthless. Not only had they crippled them, but they had also plundered their belongings. Let's go. After searching, Zhou Wen turned around and left, ignoring John and company. Old Zhou, what alacrity movement technique is that? It's so cool. You can actually float in the air like Superman, Li Xian asked Zhou Wen enviously. Clearly, he was somewhat tempted. That's not a movement technique. Unless you give up on the invincible Khanate divine art, don't even think about it, Zhou Wen said half-truthfully. Even if Li Xian was willing to give up on the invincible Khanate divine art, he might not be able to master the God Fiend era. Zhou Wen's God Fiend era was simulated by the Lost Immortal Sutra, not something he had cultivated himself. Li Xian felt discouraged when he heard that. He said gloomily, "Forget it. Although it's cool to be able to fly in the air, mine isn't bad either." The two of them headed east. They only knew from the maps drawn by their predecessors that the Khanate Holy Temple was in the east, but they weren't too sure of its exact location. Because every time someone entered the Holy Land, the map they drew would be slightly different, but the general location of the Holy Temple would not be wrong. There were no dimensional creatures in the Holy Land, so the two of them didn't encounter any danger. After walking for more than half a day, they saw a sea appear in front of them. On the cliff by the sea stood an ancient purple building. It should be there. Li Xian was delighted as he called for Zhou Wen to quickly walk over. When they arrived in front of the ancient building, there were already a few young people standing in front of it. Clearly, they were here to accept the Khanate Holy Temple's test. When a few of them saw Zhou Wen, they were slightly taken aback. They were somewhat puzzled, as though they were wondering why Zhou Wen had come here. From their expressions, Zhou Wen knew that these people definitely knew that John had led people to besiege them. "Zhou Wen, you sure are lucky to not have been stopped by John and company," a black-robed youth said coldly as he looked at Zhou Wen. "My luck has always been good," Zhou Wen said. "However, your luck ends here. My target isn't Jing. Since she didn't come, I originally thought it was beneath me to fight you. However, since John and those idiots failed to stop you and you ran in front of me, I can't let you return in one piece. I have to leave some marks so that you can show it to Tianzhua when you return," the black-robed youth said arrogantly. "Why are you spouting so much nonsense? If you want to attack, hurry up. Don't delay us from accepting the Khanate Holy Temple's test," Zhou Wen said casually. The black-robed youth didn't say a word as terrifying black flames erupted from his body. He threw a punch at Zhou Wen like a volcanic eruption. Zhou Wen didn't use the banana fan. All he did was switch his primordial energy art to the ancient Sovereign Sutra and meet the black-robed youth's fist with an ashen palm. When the fist and palm collided, the black-robed youth felt his organs burn as though they were on fire. He opened his mouth and spat out a large pool of blood as his body collapsed limply to the ground. The smiles on the faces of the youths beside him instantly froze as a chill ran down their spines. They knew the black-robed youth's strength very well. He was rather famous among the families of the 6 heroes and wasn't inferior to John. However, he couldn't even withstand a single strike from Zhou Wen. "Don't tell me this is another Tianzhua." They had an ominous feeling. Amidst the mountains, a beautiful butterfly leisurely flew past. There was a person sitting on the butterfly's back. As the butterfly flew, the person revealed a look of surprise. He made the butterfly change directions and land on a mountain peak. On the mountain peak, more than 10 people had fallen to the ground and were groaning in pain. They were none other than John and company. "Lance, you're finally here." John was overjoyed when he saw the person on the butterfly's back. "What's going on with you guys?" Lance looked at John and the others and asked in surprise. "Our primordial energy, C, was destroyed by Zhou Wen, and he even snatched our things." John gritted his teeth as he recounted the matter. Finally, he pleaded that Zhou Wen has a powerful companion beast helping him. "We aren't his match. Now, only you can protect the dignity of our 6 hero families. The others are probably not his match. This Zhou Wen is rather interesting, but I've already said that I'm not interested in him. Furthermore, You were the one who came looking for him. Instead, you were crippled by him. You can only blame yourselves for not being skilled enough, Lance said as he patted the butterfly beneath him. The butterfly immediately rose into the sky and left the mountain peak. John and company were stunned. They never expected Lance to ignore the friendship between the 6 hero families. Chapter 205. Zhou sat on the stone steps outside the Khanate Holy Temple and gamed while Li Xian entered the Khanate Holy Temple to take the test. The black-robed youth and the others had long disappeared. Even the black-robed youth's primordial energy sea had been destroyed and his items had been stolen. They didn't dare stay here any longer. Zhou couldn't help but feel disappointed that he had died at the hands of the golden flying ant again. He had lost count of the number of times he had been killed by the golden flying ant, but he had failed to touch the white cocoon. Zhou really wanted to know what was inside the white cocoon. Why are you the only one here? Didn't anyone else come to the Khanate Holy Temple? Just as Zhou was about to restart the game, he saw a man land on a butterfly. The man glanced at the sealed temple door before looking at Zhou. There's another person inside the temple, Zhou answered when he saw that the other party didn't seem to have any ill intentions. Lance got off the butterfly's back and put it away. He looked at Zhou's phone and said, I also like to play mobile games, but I play fighting games. This kind of repetitive grinding isn't suitable for me. With that said, Lance took out his phone and opened a game. Unfortunately, the magnetic field here is too unstable. The interference to the signal is too strong. Otherwise, we could play online. I don't play fighting games, Zhou said. That's a pity. Lance seemed somewhat disappointed as he sat down on the steps beside him. As he gamed, he asked, Are you also interested in the Khanate Holy Temple? No, I'm only here to take a look with my friend. Are you also here to take the test? Zhou asked. That's not it. I'm only here to take a look at what the Khanate Holy Temple looks like. I don't plan on accepting its special physique, Lance said. Zhou found this person rather interesting. As he spoke, he gamed. His operations and thoughts weren't messed up at all. Furthermore, his operations were extremely meticulous. This wasn't something an ordinary person could do. Since you're already here, why don't you give it a try? Perhaps you might have a chance of obtaining the Khanate Infinite Body, Zhou asked Lance with interest. As Lance gamed, he said, It's not just the Khanate Infinite Body. I'm not interested in all the special physiques in the Holy Land. However, my family insisted that I come here, so I can take a look. Since I'm here, I might as well visit all the temples and treat it as a vacation. You are an interesting person. Zhou found him more and more interesting. You're also very interesting. I've only heard of people coming to the Holy Land to fight for qualifications. I've never heard of people accompanying their friends, Lance said with a smile. I want to snatch it too, but I don't plan on snatching the Khanate Infinite Body, Zhou said. The 6 physiques of the Sacred Land have their own advantages and disadvantages. This innate infinite body has extremely high requirements for physical fitness. Ordinary people simply cannot meet the requirements. According to the invincible divine body, your body is invincible temple when body holy, Saint Spirit body saint, which Spirit Wu Temple, C, Saint Master World, Qin, Zhou, One Sun Temple, God. From your aura, it seems a little strange. It probably doesn't match any of the Holy Temple's special physiques. If you wish to snatch a special physique, the difficulty will probably be higher than others. Lance put down his phone and sized up Zhou for a moment. Where there is a will, there is a way. Zhou wasn't willing to talk about himself, but he was very interested in Lance. He asked, Why don't you want a special physique? It's something everyone wants. Everyone wants it. After so many years, there aren't many people with 6 special constitutions in the Alliance, but there are still quite a few of them. There's no point in me taking what everyone else has, so I might as well not take it. Furthermore, the clans in Tianzhua doesn't have a special constitution, so he can't suppress anyone in his generation. If Tianzhua can do it, so can I. Lance rarely told others about this, but for some reason, he casually mentioned it to Zhou. Upon hearing Tianzhua's name, Zhou's expression turned odd. You know Tianzhua? Lance was very sharp. He guessed that Zhou knew in Tianzhua from his expression. I do, but our relationship isn't that good. If you want to ask me about him, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed, Zhou said with a shrug. There's no need. There's no need. Don't tell me anything about in Tianzhua. Lance hurriedly waved his hand. Why is that? Zhou looked at Lance in puzzlement. I want to defeat him with my own hands in the future. If I hear about him now and find out some of his weaknesses, it will be too boring. The Tianzhua I want to defeat is the strongest in Tianzhua, Lance said solemnly. Zhou thought to himself, from the looks of it, this person should be from the 6 hero families. Otherwise, he wouldn't be thinking about defeating in Tianzhua all day. However, it's strange. Doesn't he know that I'm here on behalf of the In family? After chatting for a while, they hit it off quite well. They then chatted about their experiences in cultivation and martial techniques. Although their understandings were different, their philosophies were very compatible. As the two of them chatted, they suddenly saw the door to the Khanate Holy Temple open. Li Xian walked out. How was it? Zhou stood up and asked. I passed, but I don't know if anyone's results will be better than mine. We'll only know in 10 days, Li Xian said with a smile. I'm already done. Which temple do you want to go to? I'll accompany you. At that moment, Li Xian saw Lance. He clearly didn't know him. Seeing that Lance and Zhou seemed to be getting along well, he asked curiously, Who is this? Do you know someone? I just got to know him. Only then did Zhou recall that he didn't know Lance's name. Neither of them had told him their names. Lance stood up and said, It's time for me to enter. Let's meet again if there's a chance. However, before Lance could enter the Khanate Holy Temple, the WRM statue coiled around the stone pillar in front of the door suddenly opened its eyes. Its body also moved as it came to life. It extended its head and stared at Zhou. Are you willing to be the spokesperson of my Khanate Holy Temple in the human world? The three of them were slightly taken aback. Lance looked at Zhou with an odd expression. As a disciple of the 6 hero families, he had never heard of anyone receiving an invitation from the temple. Even the first 6 heroes to come to the Holy Land had to go through a series of tests before they were selected. This was the first time he had seen someone take the initiative to invite Zhou. Zhou, what are you waiting for? Quickly agree. Li Xian hurriedly nudged Zhou when he saw him in a daze. However, Zhou wasn't happy about receiving an invitation. The reason he was in a daze was that after the WYRM issued the invitation, his sigh of the Life Providence King seemed to stir restlessly. A sense of disgust spread, affecting Zhou. Chapter 206. The emotions were just too intense, so intense that Zhou didn't hesitate to reject her. Sorry, I'm only here to accompany my friend. I don't plan on obtaining anything from the Khanate Holy Temple. The WYRM stared at Zhou again before slowly retreating to the stone pillar, slowly turning into a lifeless statue. Lance looked at Zhou with interest as though he had piqued his interest. Li Xian sighed and said, Old Zhou, if you rejected it because of me, it will make me feel touched and sad. No, the Khanate infinite body isn't my goal to begin with. Even without you, I would still reject it. Zhou was telling the truth. Your words make me even sadder, Li Xian joked. Let's go. Let's take a look at the other holy temples. Zhou only wanted to visit the other holy temples. The sigh of the King Life Providence was a combination of his stats and the Lost Immortal Sutra, but now, the sigh of the king actually rejected the holy temple. This meant that the advancement plan Zhou had previously thought of would probably be very difficult to succeed. If I can't use a special physique to raise my stats to 21 points, how can I advance to the epic stage? Zhou was filled with puzzlement. This fellow is rather interesting. Seeing Zhou and Li Xian leave, Lance turned around and entered the Khanate Holy Temple. Zhou and Li Xian rushed to the Sun Holy Temple not because of the Sun Strafe art, but because the Sun Holy Temple was closest to the Khanate Holy Temple. However, they didn't know that the members of the 6 hero families had already gathered together and were discussing how to deal with Zhou. Previously, when Liz went to the various families to look for them, most of the members of the 6 hero families thought nothing of it. They felt that since Jing wasn't there was no need for them to go through the trouble of dealing with Zhou. However, who knew that Hardadef would end up having his primordial energy crippled by Zhou when he led more than 10 people to teach Zhou a lesson. Even the black-robed youth from the Xia family had his primordial energy crippled. Zhou looked like in Tianzhua again. This made many members of the 6 hero families unable to tolerate it. And Tianzhua's matter has already disgraced our 6 families. Now, there's Zhou. This can't be allowed to continue. What do you think? Xiaobing said coldly. The black-robed youth who had his primordial energy crippled by Zhou when in front of the Khanate Holy Temple was Xiaobing's younger brother. Originally, I was too lazy to pay attention to him, but I didn't expect him to be so impudent. We really should teach him a lesson. Otherwise, others will think that we are easy to bully. In the future, everyone will dare to bully us, Dugu Chuan of the Dugu family said. Choking with sobs, strange novel www. Zhou has to be crippled. However, he has an abnormally powerful companion beast. That companion beast can transform into a fan. The wind it produces can't even withstand my light of judgment. If I can't finish off that fan, I'm afraid it'll be very difficult to subdue him, John said weakly. Hardadef said with a bitter smile, I did bring the goddess of wind's protection with me, but it was snatched away by Zhou. However, even with the goddess of wind's protection, it's useless. After all, that thing can only protect one person. The others will still be injured by the fan's power. Xiaobing and company were taken aback when they heard that. They never expected Hardadef to go to such lengths. He had even brought the goddess of wind's protection. Unfortunately, it had been snatched away by Zhou. Dugu Chuan pondered for a moment and said, such a primordial energy skill will definitely consume a lot of primordial energy. All we need to do is fight him one after another and deplete his primordial energy. That way, it'll be useless even if he has the fan. Hardadef hurriedly shook his head and said, this method isn't feasible. When we fought him previously, he used the fan 6 times in one battle. However, he still had plenty of primordial energy and still had the strength to use other primordial energy skills. I reckon he has some treasure that can quickly recover his primordial energy. In that case, it's really troublesome, Dugu Chuan said with a frown. It's not much trouble. Leave that fan to me, Xiaobing said. Xiaobing, are you confident? We can't fail again this time. Otherwise, the 6 hero families will really become laughingstocks, Dugu Chuan said. It's not convenient for me to elaborate, but don't worry. As long as I'm certain that the fan is a manifestation of a wind elemental companion beast, I'm 100% confident that I can render it useless. Xiaobing was confident. All right, I'll leave the problem of the fan to you. Let's go find Zhou now, Dugu Chuan said as he stood up. Wait a moment. Hardadef stopped him. What else is there? Dugu Chuan frowned. Hardadef coughed lightly and said, apart from having that fan, Zhou is also very good at flying. Without using a flying companion beast or mount, he can move freely in the sky. He's almost like Superman. I wonder what primordial energy skill he cultivates or what flying treasure he has. When you go, be careful at all times. Don't let him use his flying abilities to escape. Is it a wind elemental flying skill? Xiaobing asked. I don't think so. I don't sense the power of the wind from him. Hardadef shook his head. That's a little troublesome. If it wasn't a wind elemental flying skill, I wouldn't have been able to do anything to him, Xiaobing said with a frown. Leave this problem to me. I guarantee that he won't escape, a blonde youth said. When Xiaobing and Dugu Chuan saw that the person who spoke was prose, they nodded slightly. They trusted his ability and didn't say anything else as they prepared to set off. Wait a moment. Hardadef stopped them again. What else is there? Xiaobing was already somewhat impatient. Zhou still has a saber. It's extremely sharp. The sword formed by my legendary Snake of Radiance was easily sliced apart by his saber. Also, the flying mounts we used previously were sliced into 2. You have to be careful, Hardadef added. What else do you know? Tell me everything at once. Dugu Chuan was already having a headache. A terrifying pet, a powerful flying skill, and an extremely sharp weapon. Just one of these items was enough to make an ordinary person famous. Yet, Zhou had all three. It was no wonder even Hardadef had fallen at his hands. It wasn't all Hardadef's incompetence. There's nothing else. By the way, Zhou also has a companion beast. Its defense is extremely strong. Typical legendary weapons will find it difficult to injure it. There's also a night pet that has powerful impact and destructive power. Hardadef added after some thought. Duga Chuan, Xiaobing, and company looked at Hardadef as a thought arose in their minds. Who's the rich? Aren't our 6 hero families the biggest rich families in the alliance? Why does it look like Zhou when is richer than us? Chapter 207. When Zhou Wen and Li Xian arrived at the Sun God Temple, they were surprised to discover that there wasn't a single person in front of it. Furthermore, the door was open, proving that no one was taking the test inside. Strange, is the Sun God Temple that unpopular? No one is taking the test here? Li Xian looked around in puzzlement. Indeed, there was no one. We've been delayed for so long. Perhaps the person who came here to take the test has already left. Zhou Wen walked into the Sun God Temple. He wanted to try and see if the Sai of the King would really repel special physiques. After Zhou Wen entered the temple, the door automatically closed. Li Xian sat on the stone steps outside, waiting for Zhou Wen. However, just as he sat down, he saw a group of people walk over. When Li Xian took a look, his expression changed drastically. His frivolous look instantly vanished as his expression turned solemn. The people who came were all members of the 6 hero families. It was clearly not a coincidence that they had come together. Are you Li Xian from Luoyang's Li family? Xiaobing sized up Li Xian as about 40 to 50 people surrounded the temple. I'm Li Xian. Hello, Miss Xia. Li Xian bowed slightly at Xiaobing. Li Xian recognized Xiaobing. Among the 6 hero families of the Federation, the Xia family's roots were in the East District. They were the biggest, wealthy family in the East District. The Li family was also considered a wealthy family in Luoyang, but compared to the Xia family, they were like landlords in the countryside. Furthermore, the Li family and the Xia family had business dealings. They had many uses for the Xia family. Even the Li family's invincible connate divine art was obtained from the Xia family. Since you call me Miss Xia, I'll give you a way out on account of your father and brother. Don't interact with people like Zhou Wen again. It won't do you any good, Xiaobing said as she walked towards the Sun God Temple's entrance. Miss Xia, Zhou Wen is taking the test inside. You can't enter now, Li Xian said with a smile, but he didn't make way. I'm waiting for him to take the test. Does he really think he can obtain the Sun God body? Back then, and Tianzhua failed to obtain it. He won't be able to obtain it either. Furthermore, he will have to pay the price, Prose said disdainfully. What do you mean by that? The smile on Li Xian's face widened, but he realized that something was amiss. Although Li Xian didn't know what they had done, it definitely wasn't that simple. Logically speaking, outsiders couldn't enter the temple during the test, nor could they disturb the people inside. However, from Pro's tone, they clearly had a way to affect Zhou Wen, who was undergoing the test. It was even possible for Zhou Wen to suffer some sort of damage. Zhou God, Dao Zhou and Zhou. Xiaobing was already impatient. Zhou Wen had crippled her brother's primordial energy C, making her extremely angry. She wished she could personally cripple Zhou Wen's primordial energy C. Xia, Ming God. Bing Xia Xian said with when Xia Bing frowned slightly as she stared at Li Xian and said, Li Xian, are you courting death? He looked at Xia Bing and said, Miss Xia, I really don't want to be your enemy, but the person being tested inside is my friend. I haven't had many children since I was young, and 2 of them died not long ago. This makes me very sad, so I especially don't wish to see my friend get hurt. Can you tell me what you want to do to Zhou Wen? To have the courage to say such words. Luoyang's Li family has produced quite a figure. However, you should know your limits. Otherwise, you might not be able to bear the consequences, said Xiaobing. Why are you wasting your breath on him? Let's finish him off first before destroying Zhou Wen's trial. However, Prose didn't have Xiaobing's patience. As he spoke, he threw a punch at Li Xian. His fist flashed with lightning and carried a terrifying glow. Li Xian raised his fist to meet it. When the fists collided, Li Xian's body immediately trembled as though he had been electrocuted. Then, he was sent flying by Prose's punch. Li Xian's body slammed into the Sun God Temple's door and immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. However, he stood up shakily and gritted his teeth as he walked back to Prose. Courting death. Prose threw another punch. The lightning-like punch sent Li Xian flying again. It looked like Li Xian was in an even more miserable state than before. However, Li Xian still forced himself to walk back. It looked like he couldn't even walk steadily, as though a gust of wind could blow him down at any moment. Prose frowned and said, Li Xian, do you really want to die here? Is it worth it for Zhouwen? I don't want to see my friend get hurt again. Can you let him go? Li Xian whispered. Prose, don't waste time. Just cripple him, Degu Chuan said. Prose nodded and threw another punch at Li Xian. However, this time, he struck Li Xian's abdomen. Typically, when people cultivated primordial energy arts, they needed to store their primordial energy in one place. This place was the primordial energy sea, but different primordial energy arts had different locations. Most of the primordial energy sea was in the lower dantian, which was where the abdomen was. If the primordial energy sea was crippled, primordial energy would leak out, preventing one from storing primordial energy. It was equivalent to being crippled. Some primordial energy arts didn't have their primordial energy sea in the lower dantian. That made it harder to find. Prose didn't know where Li Xian's primordial energy sea was, so he first attacked Li Xian's abdomen. If his primordial energy sea was there, then the terrifying lightning could penetrate it and cause his primordial energy to leak out, turning him into a cripple. Bam! Li Xian was sent flying again, looking even more miserable. He struggled to get up, but he stumbled and couldn't even stand steadily. However, he still wanted to get up and walk back. Everyone was somewhat moved. There weren't many people in this era who could be so foolish for a friend. However, Xia Bing suddenly said with a strange expression, something's wrong. His body has a jade-like luster, and his eyes have a faint glow. That's a sign that he has cultivated in the invincible Khanate divine art. Such injuries are nothing to a legendary who has cultivated in the invincible Khanate divine art. Furthermore, his primordial energy, see, isn't in the lower dantian, so it's impossible for him to be in such a miserable state. Xia Bing's words left everyone taken aback. When Li Xian heard Xia Bing's words, his swaying body, which looked like it was about to collapse, stood up straight. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and his entire aura changed. From the looks of it, I still can't hide it from you, Miss Xia. Li Xian sighed slightly. He originally wanted to stall for more time, but unfortunately, with Xia Bing, who was familiar with the invincible Khanate divine art, it was useless no matter how good his acting was. Prose was immediately enraged when he saw that he had been fooled. Lightning surged from his body, and the lightning on his fist was like the sun as it blasted at Li Xian once again. Instead of retreating, Li Xian advanced. A heavy sword with lightning swirling around it appeared in his hand. The lightning on the sword flashed as it met Prose's fist. Boom! The two types of lightning exploded in the air. Li Xian stood proudly on the stone steps with a heavy sword in hand, while Prose took several steps back and spat out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 208. Everyone was astonished. Prose was rather famous, even among the families of the six heroes. It was quite surprising that he had been repelled by Li Xian. Isn't that Thunder God General? The Thunder God General he bought at the trading market actually has Thunder God augmentation. What good luck! Someone immediately recognized the Thunder God sword in Li Xian's hand. He's indeed lucky. 2 million for a Thunder God General with Thunder God augmentation. This punk sure is lucky, someone said enviously. Back at the trading market, Li Xian had been mocked when he spent 2 million to buy the Thunder God General companion egg. It was a companion egg that could be bought for 400,000 to 500,000 elsewhere, but he insisted on spending 2 million here. It was foolish. However, when they saw that Thunder God General had Thunder God augmentation, many people's eyes turned red with envy. The Thunder God Sword was indeed worthy of its title as the best offensive pet at the legendary stage. Even a fellow like Prose, who was adept at lightning powers, had suffered quite a bit. Prose, who's known as the Son of Lightning, is nothing much. He can't even withstand the lightning powers of a companion beast. How disappointing. Li Xian wanted to infuriate Prose and make him fight him alone. This way, he could stall for more time. Prose, he's deliberately infuriating you to stall for time, Xia Bing said. Prose nodded slightly. His golden pupils seemed to flash with lightning as he stared at Li Xian and said, "You have successfully infuriated me. So die." Prose attacked, but he wasn't the only one. The few descendants of the 6 hero families at the front all attacked Li Xian, hoping to finish him off as quickly as possible before destroying Zhou Wen's trial. 16 years of oblivion. Today, I'll fight everyone with a single sword. I don't wish to leave my name in history, but I wish to live up to my name. Li Xian held the Thunder God Sword as he stood proudly in front of the Sun God Temple. His expression had never been so serious. The sword struck out like lightning, stirring up ripples as it met the attacks of Prose and company. Zhou Wen walked into the Sun God Temple. He originally imagined that it was just a palace, but after entering, he realized that the interior of the Sun God Temple was a void. In this void, a sun hung high in the sky, emitting incomparably dazzling divine light, as if it was the center of the void of the universe. Zhou Wen was stepping on a stone staircase that floated in the void, and it extended all the way to the sun in the void. Cultivator, step on the stone steps and walk towards the sun. The closer you are to the sun, the more likely you are to obtain the power of the god of the sun. An ethereal voice came from the void. Zhou Wen didn't sense any abnormal reaction from the Sai of the king as he walked towards the stone steps ahead. After taking a few steps, Zhou Wen felt the surrounding temperature rise significantly. The temperature rose too quickly. After walking more than 10 stone steps, Zhou Wen felt as though he had walked into a furnace. On the other hand, the chick standing on his shoulder had a look of enjoyment on its face, as if the heat made it very comfortable. Before Zhou Wen entered the temple, he had already switched his primordial energy art to the Ancient Sovereign Sutra. The Ancient Sovereign Sutra also seemed to have a portion of the power of fire, but it was completely different from the power of the Sun God Temple. Zhou Wen originally imagined that the power of the Ancient Sovereign Sutra would allow him to gain an advantage in the Sun God Temple, but now he realized that that wasn't the case. He used all his strength to resist the Sun God's brilliance, but he was already drenched in sweat after taking about 20 steps. If he continued walking, he might be dried up by the sun after another 10 steps. With no choice, Zhou Wen had no choice but to activate the Lotus Flower Buddha Body primordial energy skill and rely on his protective primordial energy to resist the Sun God's brilliance. But even so, it only allowed Zhou Wen to take a few more steps. He was still an extremely long distance away from the sun in the void. From the looks of it, ordinary people really can't withstand the power of the Sun God Temple. Unless one cultivates the corresponding primordial energy art and obtains the temple's recognition, even an epic expert wouldn't be able to walk to the front of the sun. With this in mind, Zhou Wen had the intention to retreat. He was only here to seek a way to break through, not to risk his life. Since he already knew that it was impossible, there was no need for him to continue. Just as Zhou Wen was about to retreat, the Ancient Sovereign Sutra in his body automatically changed back to the Lost Immortal Sutra. As the Lost Immortal Sutra slowly flowed, the originally ethereal Lost Immortal Sutra gradually turned warm. As the Lost Immortal Sutra heated up his primordial energy, the sun god's brilliance around Zhou Wen's body didn't seem as hot. It immediately energized Zhou Wen. The Lost Immortal Sutra has finally taken effect. Could it be that there's hope of advancing this time? Zhou Wen was delighted as he dismissed the thought of retreating and continued walking forward. After the Lost Immortal Sutra took effect, the effects of the sun god's brilliance on him decreased. When it shone on Zhou Wen, he found it warm and no longer felt the burning sensation from before. If I were to cultivate the sun strafe art, This should be the effect when I come to the Sun God Temple again, right? Zhou thought to himself as he walked towards the sun. The sun that seemed far away seemed to have become much closer. With every step Zhou took, he could sense that he was rapidly approaching the sun. How is this a test? It's clearly a selection. Those who are chosen by the temple can easily approach the sun. Those who aren't chosen can't reach the sun, no matter how hard they work. If it wasn't for the lost immortal sutra fooling the terrifying existence here, I wouldn't have been able to walk to the sun even if I advanced to the epic stage. Indeed, nothing in this world is truly fair. It's the same even in this miraculous sun god temple. As he pondered, Zhou approached the sun. The sun wasn't as blinding as before. Zhou could even see its appearance clearly. It wasn't a sun, but a golden seed. It was shaped like a pine nut, and its entire body was like a golden crystal. It was the seed's body that was emitting light and heat, making it look like a sun. Zhou glanced at the chick on his shoulder and saw that it still looked relaxed. It didn't seem to be affected by the sun's temperature at all. He couldn't help but be secretly alarmed. He had the lost immortal sutra, which played the role of confusing the sun god temple's mechanism. He wasn't suppressed by the sun god temple's power, so he was able to reach this point. However, the chick didn't have the lost immortal sutra. It relied on its physique to survive. This was somewhat terrifying. I wonder what level of dimensional creature this chick's mother is. From the looks of it, it's probably not as simple as an epic. Zhou walked forward step by step, approaching the seed without being affected at all. Finally, Zhou finished walking the last stone step. The seed was just inches away from him. He just needed to extend his hand to grab the sun-like seed. Chapter 209. Outside the Sun God Temple, Li Xian leaned against the temple's door as he brandished the Thunder God's sword crazily, blocking wave after wave of attacks. However, no matter how powerful he was alone, he couldn't withstand all the attacks. Sword flashes, battle aura, flames, frost, and all sorts of powers passed through the gaps in his moves, tearing apart the armor he wore. Even the golden silk soft armor that the three-eyed golden warrior had transformed into was in tatters from withstanding too many attacks. The terrifying sword beams sliced through Li Xian's body of flesh and blood. The powerful battle aura caused his bones to emit cracking sounds as all sorts of attacks left countless wounds on his body. From the beginning to now, Li Xian had more than 100 injuries on his body, but he still stood in front of the temple and continued brandishing the Thunder God sword in his hand like a tireless war machine. As for the injuries on his body, they healed at an unbelievable speed. Often, the wounds that had just formed a second ago would be healed a few seconds later. The injuries were like water that flowed through his body, vanishing with a flick of his hand. The speed at which he recovered from his injuries left Xia Bing and company alarmed. Although the invincible Khanate divine art has powerful recovery abilities, it's only at the legendary stage. It's impossible for it to have such powerful effects unless there's something wrong with his life providence. Xiaobing had already guessed the reason and couldn't help but feel envious. The invincible Khanate divine art was originally the first primordial energy art the Xia family obtained. It corresponded to the Khanate Holy Temple, but as the invincible Khanate divine art required a virgin to cultivate, one would become a cripple once it was broken. They could only cultivate from the beginning, so the Xia family had reluctantly given up on the invincible Khanate divine art. Back then, one of the 6 heroes, the Xia family's elder, had gone from invincible hero to an ordinary person in order to get married and have children. In order to prevent such a thing from happening again, the Xia family's elder had found a few other primordial energy arts to replace the invincible Khanate divine art. However, even so, the Xia family had no intention of handing the invincible Khanate divine art to others. The Li family had helped the Xia family greatly and offered to exchange the invincible Khanate divine art. Although the Xia family had given it to them, it was only a simplified version. It was still somewhat inferior to the true invincible Khanate divine art. Furthermore, without the corresponding Khanate infinite constitution, the The power that the invincible connate divine art could unleash was very limited. However, Li Xian only cultivated a simplified version of the invincible connate divine art and didn't have a connate infinite body. Yet, he was able to condense a life providence that was in no way inferior to the Xia family's hero. It was truly enviable. However, Li Xian's life providence was clearly different from the Xia family's elder's life providence. The Xia family only knew that he definitely had powerful recovery abilities, but they weren't too sure about the exact functions. This fellow is an unkillable monster. There's no point in continuing the battle. If we don't quickly enter the Sun God Temple, Zhou will probably come out soon. All the work we did previously will be wasted, Duge Chuan said. I know, but what can we do? Pros punched Li Xian in the chest, causing his chest to cave in slightly. But in the blink of an eye, his chest bulged up again as though he had never been injured. I do have a companion beast that should be useful. Although it can't kill him, it can first restrain him. However, without this pet, I'm afraid you will have to put in more effort when dealing with Zhou later, Duge Chuan said hesitantly. Look at the situation now. Let's get rid of this monster first. As long as we destroy Zhou's trial, he will be severely injured. Is there a need to be afraid that we won't be able to cripple him? Pros said. All right. Duge Chuan thought that it made sense. Without any hesitation, he summoned a companion beast. It was a huge snow-white spider with a blood-colored pattern on its back. The pattern looked like a woman's face. In the next second, the huge spider transformed into a snow-white rod that landed in Duge Chuan's hand. Duge Chuan found an opportunity to use the snow-white rod to smash Li Xian's body. The weapon that looked like a rod instantly transformed into a huge net that bound Li Xian's body. Duge Chuan tugged at the net strings, hoping to pull Li Xian away from the door. Li Xian used the Thunder God sword to slice at the net, but the Thunder God sword was stuck to the net. The more he struggled, the tighter the net became. However, Li Xian was quite strong. Duge Chuan was unable to pull Li Xian over alone. Why aren't you helping? Duge Chuan shouted. A few people beside him came over to help him pull the net, and Li Xian's figure was forcefully pulled out. Duge Chuan pulled Li Xian away and said to Pros, let's hold him back first. Hurry up and take action. Don't let Zhou finish the trial. All right, leave it to me. Don't worry. Without needing Duge Chuan to say anything, Pros had already rushed to the door. Li Xian wanted to stop him, but he was powerless. Pros took out something from his chest pocket. It was a sun disk. He fumbled around the Sun God Temple's door for a while before placing the sun disk into a groove on the door. The sun disk fit perfectly with the door, as though it was born as one. The sun disk was left behind by an elder of the Pros family, who was one of the 6 heroes back then. The physique he obtained was the sun god body of the Sun God Temple. The sun disk was also something he had brought out from the Sun God Temple. As the first spokesperson of the Sun God Temple, the Sun God Temple had given him the authority. If one of his descendants inherited the Sun God body bloodline, they could bring the sun disk back to the Sun God Temple and use it to activate the Sun God body enhancement trial. The enhancement trial was specially prepared for people with the Sun God body. The difficulty far exceeded ordinary trials. Ignoring ordinary people without the Sun God body, even people with the Sun God body bloodline might not be able to pass it. In the past, someone from the Pros family had attempted to accept the Sun God Temple enhancement trial with the Sun God body bloodline. In the end, not only did he fail the trial, he even returned with serious injuries. It took him 3 to 4 years to fully recover from his injuries. Speaking of which, it was quite a coincidence. Xia Bing and Pros knew that the family had the Sun Strafe art and that it was most compatible with the Sun God Temple. They were certain that Zhou had definitely cultivated in the Sun Strafe art and would come to the Sun God Temple to take the test. Therefore, they had set up this trap. Although Zhou didn't cultivate in the Sun Strafe art, he had coincidentally come to the Sun God Temple. It could only be said that Pros and company had hit the jackpot. Inside the Sun God Temple, Zhou was just about to reach out to pluck the sun-like seed when he suddenly saw the seed glow brightly, turning abnormally resplendent. Chapter 210. As the seed's temperature rose abnormally, the surrounding temperature suddenly rose as well. The entire sun god temple burned with terrifying golden flames that instantly filled the void. The seed was like golden glass, and there was a golden rune flashing within it. Zhou was immediately given a fright as his clothes burned. He immediately cursed inwardly. The Lost Immortal Sutra was only a disguised physique, after all. It wasn't the true sun god body, so he would definitely be burned to ashes by the flames. Just as the golden flames were about to burn him, he summoned the banana fan, and before he could use it, he felt a chill on his neck. The flames on his body had automatically extinguished. Zhou was slightly taken aback as he looked down and realized that the chill came from the pendant around his neck. It was the ivory pendant Wang Mingyuan had given him before they parted. Could it be that the pendant teacher gave me isn't an ordinary item? Zhou was secretly alarmed. Without any time to think, Zhou held the banana fan and rushed out of the sun god temple. As for the seed, he didn't dare take it even if he wanted to. The temperature on it was terrifyingly high. Even if metal touched the seed, it would probably melt. Suddenly, the chick on Zhou's shoulder opened its mouth and sucked. The golden flames around Zhou immediately surged towards the chick's mouth like a breached dam. Zhou watched helplessly as the golden flames that filled the sky surged into the chick's tiny mouth like a surging river. Its tiny body was like a bottomless abyss. No matter how many golden flames were sucked in, they vanished without a trace. As the golden flames were devoured, the chick's pale yellow feathers gradually gained a luster. It looked like its feathers were becoming more plump and had a pale golden glow. The more golden flames it absorbed, the more plump and lustrous the chick's feathers became. Even its body seemed to grow a little bigger. Zhou watched helplessly as the golden flames in the void were sucked clean by the chick. The terrifying heat completely vanished, leaving only the seed emitting light like a tiny sun. In that moment, the chick's body had already grown to the size of a pigeon. Its feathers were pale gold, making it look like a pigeon with a special color. "It's all thanks to you." Zhou patted the chick's head and retracted the banana fan. Although the banana fan's grandine wind could restrain the golden flames, Zhou's primordial energy was limited. With his Dao body's recovery ability, it was impossible for him to continuously use the grandine wind. When the time came, he would still suffer. With the flames extinguished, Zhou looked at the golden seed and frowned slightly. The golden symbols in the seed were still twinkling. He could sense that the temperature of the seed was extremely shocking. He attempted to grab it with his hand, but before his fingers even touched the seed, he felt as though it was being cooked by the terrifying heat. Seeing that it was impossible for him to obtain the seed, Zhou's heart stirred. He took out his mysterious phone and snapped a picture of the seed. The camera successfully locked onto the seed. After Zhou snapped it, the seed immediately vanished and was stored in his phone. Zhou couldn't help but be overjoyed. He hurriedly put away his phone and turned to walk out. The sudden change in the sun god temple made Zhou suspect that something had happened outside. Outside the sun god temple, pros and company were waiting for Zhou to come out. Although some people wished for Zhou to die inside, they knew that Zhou wouldn't die that easily. However, his injuries were likely not light. Against a heavily injured Zhou, they would likely have an easier time. If Hardadef hadn't made Zhou sound so rich, they wouldn't have come up with such a plan. If this were any other time, they would have directly sought out Zhou and used force to suppress him. Boom! The door to the sun god temple finally opened. Fusro and company hurriedly prepared their companion beasts and primordial energy skills, prepared to take Zhou down when he rushed out. However, when they saw the situation inside the sun god temple's door, they couldn't help but be taken aback. At the same time the sun god temple opened, the engravings and patterns on the temple began to emit a holy glow. The ancient stone palace was now filled with resplendent divine light, as though it was a mythical palace. The sun engraving at the highest point of the palace emitted an unparalleled glow, as though it was announcing something to the world. Why would a phenomenon appear in the sun god temple at this moment? Isn't this a phenomenon that will only appear in 10 days when the trial ends? There's still a long time before the 10 days. Why is it now? The more Prose spoke, the softer his voice became as his expression turned uglier. He had already figured out that there was only one possibility for such a situation to happen. Someone had already walked up to the sun seed and taken it away. However, the outcome of this conjecture was something even Prose found unbelievable. Even if it was a normal sun god temple trial, almost no one could walk up to the sun seed and directly pluck it, let alone the trial that used the sun disk to strengthen the trial. Even in their family, over the years, only 2 people had managed to do it. One of them was a first-generation hero, and the other had inherited the bloodline of the sun god body. He had then taken the ordinary trial and obtained the sun seed directly. As for the enhanced trial, even with the sun god body, no one had been able to obtain the sun seed. It was naturally impossible for Zhou Wen to have the sun god body. Prose refused to believe that he had obtained the sun seed during the enhanced trial. However, no matter how much he refused to believe it, the truth was already in front of him. Zhou Wen had walked out of the sun god temple unscathed. Even the pigeon on his shoulder was unharmed. Prose, what's going on? Didn't you say that no one can pass the enhanced trial? That without the sun god body, surviving is a problem? Dugu Chuan couldn't help but question Prose when he saw that Zhou Wen was unscathed and that such a phenomenon had appeared in the sun god temple. How would I know? Prose was also infuriated. He also wanted to know what was going on. It was completely different from what he had imagined. Now isn't the time to talk about this. Let's take down Zhou Wen first. According to the plan, even if he wasn't injured in the temple, we can still cripple him, Xia Bing said as she drew her sword and attacked Zhou Wen. You guys are really haunting me. Zhou Wen turned to look and saw that Li Xian was bound by a white net like a fish. However, it didn't look like there was any major problem. He immediately felt relieved. Seeing Xia Bing and company attack him, Zhou Wen fanned at them with a banana fan, sending the grand Yin wind sweeping over. However, to Zhou Wen's surprise, Xia Bing held a calabash in her hand and sucked at the grand Yin wind. The wind was sucked into the calabash, leaving nothing behind. Chapter 211. Zhou Wen was alarmed, but Dugu Chuan, Prose, and company were overjoyed. They increased the strength in their hands as beams of various colors shot toward Zhou Wen. Prose was prepared. The myriad lightning sky prison was ready to be activated at any moment to prevent Zhou Wen from escaping through the air. Dugu Chuan also summoned a strange shield, prepared to block Zhou Wen's sharp bamboo blade. Xia Bing even summoned 3 companion beasts, prepared to restrain Zhou Wen's 3-eyed golden warrior and mutated fiend steed. The others also used their own abilities, hoping to take down Zhou Wen on the spot without giving him any chance to resist. However, before Zhou Wen could draw his saber, the chick on his shoulder suddenly spat out a mouthful of golden flames at the sky. Golden flames spewed out like a flood, instantly turning the square outside the sun god temple into a sea of flames. Immediately, tragic cries sounded as everyone was dumbfounded. They had carefully prepared for so long and had tried all means to restrain Zhou Wen. But before they could use many of their methods, they had been burned to nothingness by the chick on Zhou Wen's shoulder. Instantly, screams filled the air. Many people were rolling on the ground as they cried out, hoping to extinguish the flames on their bodies. Some even took off their clothes as they ran. Without any hesitation, Zhou Wen drew his saber and charged in. Without any regard for the consequences, he mercilessly stabbed at their dantians. Most people's primordial energy seas were at their dantians, so they were basically crippled after being stabbed by Zhou Wen. A small number of people whose primordial energy seas weren't in their dantians definitely didn't feel good after being stabbed in the abdomen by Zhou Wen. They kept screaming on the ground. Zhou Wen searched for Xia Bing in the chaos, but she was nowhere to be seen. Even Dugu Chuan was nowhere to be seen. Prose was just about to take advantage of the chaos to escape when Zhou Wen slashed at him. Prose was alarmed and infuriated. He summoned his companion beast to fend off Zhou Wen, but he still wanted to run. He didn't dare continue fighting. The chick's mouthful of flames had scared him out of his wits. There were many legendary companion beasts that could spit out flames, but he had never seen one that could turn the entire square into a sea of fire. What was even more terrifying was that the golden flames were clearly not ordinary flames. They could even burn through his protective battle aura. It was truly frightening. Pros fled very quickly, but he wasn't as fast as Zhou. Zhou cleaved his companion beast into two with a single strike as his saber kept slashing at Pros. Pros was in a bad situation. He turned around and summoned a gigantic axe to meet Zhou's bamboo blade, but the axe was sliced through by the bamboo blade. Alarmed, Pros didn't dare continue fighting as he desperately retreated. The Pros was. With the wind's bamboo blade one, Zhou's one, Zhou, and Zhou also. The one, Pros, Zhou, Chuan, 1 and 1. By Zhou, Fan Zhou, and end. By 1, 1, and in the 1 he. 1, 1, 1 to 6, 1, and 1 by 1. 1, 1, and family in 1, and by 6, 1, and all 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and 1 family Pros from 1 and 1. Thankfully, apart from the children of the 6 families, there were only a few descendants of bigwigs. Not many people could see this scene. There is only one spot for every bigwig, unlike the descendants of the 6 hero families. As long as they were old and strong enough, they could enter the Holy Land. After they entered, they headed straight for the Holy Land they fancied. No one wasted time strolling around. Xiaobing and company originally believed that, apart from Zhou, no descendants of any major figures would choose the Sun God Temple, so this matter wouldn't be seen by others. However, this scene had been seen by someone. Furthermore, he had recorded it with his cell phone. The incident of Tianzhua crippling the 6 hero families is happening again. That fellow is too strong. The person marveled as he filmed. However, he was rather careful. He only hid in the shadows and didn't reveal his tracks, afraid that he would be discovered by the 6 families. By the time the battle ended, the square was littered with people lying on the ground. Furthermore, they were all clutching their stomachs and screaming. The spiderweb on Li Xian's body was burned apart by the golden flames. After escaping, Li Xian didn't hesitate to join the battlefield. However, he wasn't beating people up, but plundering the bodies of those who had fallen to the ground. Zhou couldn't help but feel regretful that he didn't find Xiaobing. He really wanted to know what the calabash in Xiaobing's hand was. After plundering with Li Xian, the two of them swaggered off, leaving behind the children of the 6 families who were screaming on the ground. When they arrived at an uninhabited cave, Zhou and Li Xian sat down to split the spoils. Since they didn't know what species the companion eggs were, they split a pile each. Zhou obtained 26 companion eggs. Although he didn't know what species they were, companion eggs that could be bought by those fellows probably weren't cheap. Zhou planned on finding a time to use the mysterious phone to take a look at the stats of these companion eggs before selectively incubating or fusing them. The worst part was obviously a gift for Banana Fairy. As Zhou was making his plans, the chick flew down from his shoulder and pecked open a companion egg with its beak. It lowered its head and sucked all the essence inside into its stomach. The chick had just contributed greatly, so eating 2 companion eggs wasn't a big deal. It wasn't easy for Zhou to be generous and feed the chick another companion egg, but to his surprise, the chick didn't appreciate it. It didn't even look at it, as though it wasn't interested at all. You're still picky about food. It's great that you don't eat it. Zhou put away the companion egg and ignored the chick. Compared to the companion egg, he was more interested in the sun seed. He wanted to know what it was. Previously, he had been in a hurry to come out and hadn't looked at the sun seed after putting it into the mysterious phone. Now that he took out his phone to take a look, he heaved a sigh of relief when he realized that the sun seed was still in the blood-colored avatar's hand and hadn't vanished. Using his phone to check the sun seed stats, Zhou was slightly taken aback. Sun God Power Crystal, formed from the sun god's blood essence. Refining and absorbing it can improve one's physique. The game screen popped up a choice on whether to absorb it. Zhou didn't sense any signs of rejection from the Sai of the King, so he chose to absorb it. The sun god power crystal immediately transformed into wisps of golden light that fused into the blood-colored avatar's body. Zhou also felt a scorching force surge into his body, causing it to heat up. After everything returned to normal, Zhou saw that in the blood-colored avatar's stats, the strength stat had become 21. Furthermore, behind 21 was the word sun. What does this mean? Zhou was somewhat puzzled. Chapter 2:12. Zhou attempted to use his strength, but he didn't feel that his strength had any additional stats, nor did it have a scorching effect. He didn't know what the word sun meant. However, he had finally found a way to break through. Zhou planned on heading to the other temples. If he could successfully obtain god power crystals, he might be able to advance to the epic stage. When the time came, learning the mutated fairy skill would be a piece of cake. Among the 6 temples, Zhou had already been to the Khanate and Sun Holy Temples. Among the remaining temples, the closest one was the Divine Emperor Holy Temple. However, after some consideration, Zhou didn't head to the Divine Emperor Holy Temple. Instead, he went to the Trajectory Holy Temple that was slightly further away. Zhou had seen John's Holy Emperor body before. It was likely a strength-type physique. The Sun Holy Temple had already strengthened his strength, so the two seemed to overlap. Therefore, Zhou planned on heading to the Trajectory Holy Temple to take a look. It was said that the physique given by the Trajectory Holy Temple was the body of Trajectory, the most mysterious physique among the 6 physiques. The Dugu family, who had the body of Trajectory, didn't seem to have any particularly outstanding performance. Therefore, this physique was the most controversial. Some people even said that the owner of the body of Trajectory, the first-generation hero of the Dugu family, wasn't worthy of being ranked with the other 5 heroes. However, the Dugu family had been passed down to this day. It was the most stable family among the 6 families. Although the other 5 families were more famous and powerful, there would occasionally be people who died for various reasons. However, not a single one of the Dugu family's bloodline had died yet. The first-generation heroes of the other 5 families were almost all dead, but the first-generation hero of the Dugu family was still alive and well. Now, the Dugu family was so powerful in the league that it was ranked in the top 3 among the 6 families. Many people said in private that it was better to live long than to have good kung fu. Look at the Dugu family's old hero. He had outlived countless young heroes from the other 5 families, but he was still alive and well. In the future, it was possible that all the people from the other 5 families would die, allowing the Dugu family to rule the world. The name of the Trajectory, coupled with the longevity of the Dugu family, made Zhou suspect that the body of Trajectory was some kind of speed-type physique. Therefore, the Dugu family was able to escape fast enough to avert danger time and time again and preserve their lives. Zhou was very interested in the ability to escape, so he planned on heading to the Trajectory Holy Temple to take a look. Many people from the 6 families had been maimed by Zhou, so the remaining people didn't dare cause trouble for him. It was as though they had vanished in a thin air. Zhou and Li Xian walked in the Holy Land for more than a day, but they didn't encounter anyone from the 6 families. Instead, they encountered the descendants of a few bigwigs from other places. Those people's attitude toward Zhou was lukewarm. They didn't offend him, nor did they have any intention of getting close to him. Clearly, they didn't wish to interfere in the feud between Zhou and the 6 families. There was no one outside, but when Zhou arrived, the door was enclosed, the door, and the god, the door. Zhou and Li Xian could only wait outside. Zhou took out his phone to continue playing his game, while Li Xian studied the companion eggs with the intention of hatching them. After waiting for a while, he suddenly heard a rumble. The door to the Trajectory Holy Temple opened, and a person rushed out. The person had really rushed out. He ran very fast, and his hair was disheveled. He looked like a lunatic, and his face was filled with extreme horror, as though he had seen something unbelievable. As the person ran, he shouted, "Don't kill me! Don't kill me!" I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything. Brother, what's wrong? Li Xian went forward to stop the person and pressed down on his shoulder. Li Xian wanted to ask what was going on inside the trajectory, holy temple, to scare him so badly. However, after Li Xian pressed down on the shoulder, the person's face turned pale from fright. What happened next frightened Zhou Wen and Li Xian. The person reached out and poked his eyes into two bloody holes. Then, he struggled to break free from Li Xian's grasp. As he ran, he shouted, I didn't see anything. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. Zhou Wen and Li Xian were stunned. Looking at the blood dripping on the ground, they wondered if they were dreaming. Old Zhou, I think it's fine if we don't enter the trajectory holy temple. Although we aren't afraid of death, what if we become a lunatic like that fellow? That would really be a living hell. Li Xian gulped and turned to look at the trajectory holy temple behind him. The way he looked at it was as though he was looking at a devil's den. That's true. Zhou Wen felt that what Li Xian said made sense. He didn't want to become a lunatic, and he was indeed afraid of death. The Holy Land looked very safe. There were no dimensional creatures that threatened their lives, but the true danger was inside the temple. Previously, the Sun Holy Temple had nearly injured Zhou Wen. With the trajectory Holy Temple being so strange, Zhou Wen felt that he didn't have to enter. The two of them discussed for a moment and were about to leave when they saw the lunatic who had crippled his eyes run back. His eyes were still bleeding, making him look abnormally terrifying. As he ran, he shouted, "Help! Help!" He was already blind, so he stumbled as he ran. He fell a few times before arriving in front of Zhou Wen and company. He fell to the ground and hugged Li Xian's thigh. Save me. I don't want to die. Save me. Li Xian could sense that his body was trembling violently, as though something extremely terrifying was affecting his thoughts. It made his body tremble uncontrollably. What happened? Explain yourself first. Li Xian felt apologetic towards this person, so he didn't push him away. Instead, he comforted him. Li Xian thought that if he hadn't stopped this person, he might not have crippled his eyes. Even a lunatic would be happier to be able to see than to be blind. The person hugged Li Xian's calf and said in an extremely terrified tone, I saw a ship, a very, very big ship. Someone was killing people on it. They're all dead. They're all dead. I didn't see anything. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. The person said a few more words before he suddenly went crazy. He released Li Xian's leg and wanted to run again. Zhou Wen reached out to pull the person. At that moment, he was blind. If he were to run and fall off the cliff, he would definitely die. Zhou Wen grabbed the person's arm, but the person struggled with all his might. With his extraordinary strength, he broke free, but his sleeve was torn off by Zhou Wen. When his gaze landed on the person's arm, Zhou Wen's pupils constricted. There was a tattoo of an anchor on the person's arm. Chapter 213. This wasn't the first time Zhou Wen had seen such an anchor symbol. Typically speaking, women were taboo to people who went out to sea in the past. Therefore, it was impossible for a woman to be engraved on an anchor. However, there was a woman's side profile on the anchor symbol, so Zhou Wen had a deep impression of it. Zhou Wen had never figured out what the anchor symbol meant and was rather curious about it. Now that he suddenly saw such a tattoo on a person's arm, Zhou Wen really wanted to ask him about the origins of the anchor symbol. However, this person was a lunatic running around like a madman. Even though he was blind, he still kept running. Who knew how many times he stumbled and fell? But he still refused to stop. He seemed to have said that he saw a ship and that someone was killing people on it. Does the anchor symbol have anything to do with the ship he mentioned? Zhou Wen thought to himself. Looking at the ancient trajectory holy temple in the distance, Zhou Wen suddenly realized that his previous guess might have been wrong. Most of the 6 first-generation heroes had died in the dimensional zones. Only the Dugu family's old hero was still alive. Perhaps it wasn't because he ran the fastest. From the looks of it, he must have seen something terrifying in the trajectory holy temple. Typically, there are 2 possibilities. One is that there's something terrifying in the trajectory holy temple that makes him so terrified The other possibility is that there aren't any terrifying things in the trajectory Holy Temple. What he saw was only an illusion. Regardless of which it is, this doesn't seem like a test for a speed-type physique. As Zhou pondered over it, the person couldn't see anything due to his blindness. He slammed into a tree while running and fainted. Zhou walked to the lunatic and checked his injuries. He realized that they were only superficial wounds and nothing serious. He had only fainted. "Can you recognize it?" Zhou asked Li Xian. Those who could enter the Holy Land were either descendants of the 6 heroes or representatives of bigwigs. Although Zhou didn't know him, a knowledgeable person like Li Xian might recognize him. If he knew the lunatic's identity, he might be able to figure out something from him. However, Li Xian shook his head and said, "I don't know him. However, from his attire, he doesn't look like he's from the 6 families. He might be representing a bigwig somewhere." Since even Li Xian couldn't recognize him, Zhou didn't have a good solution. He said to Li Xian, "Is there any way to send him out? He's a lunatic and now he's blind. If we leave him here, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for him to survive. I'm afraid there's nothing we can do now. It's easy to enter the Holy Land, but to leave, we have to wait until the 6 holy temples choose their successors before the exit will be opened. No one can leave now," Li Xian said with a shake of his head. Zhou had the intention of taking him out and asking about this person's background, but if he had to wait that long, it didn't seem convenient to bring a lunatic along. "Let's do this. Tie him to my mount, and let's take him with us. After all, I was the one who caused him to become blind. It's not good to leave him here," Li Xian said after some thought. "All right." Zhou happened to want to take him away, so he immediately agreed. Li Xian summoned a pet cow. Zhou and Li Xian carried the lunatic onto the cow's back and used a rope to secure it. Only then did they continue on their way to the other temples. After walking for a short distance, they heard the madman who was tied to the back of the cow talking. The two of them thought that he had woken up, but when they got closer, they saw that he was just lying there muttering to himself as if he was talking in his sleep. "Trajectory, Holy Temple. I must go to the Trajectory, Holy Temple. As long as I enter the Trajectory, Holy Temple, I'll know what happened on the ship back then. Why did they kill each other? Why? Don't kill me. Don't kill me. I didn't see anything." His words were incoherent in his dream. At first, it was fine, but later, it turned into a nightmarish wail. Zhou listened for a while and suddenly had the urge to enter the Trajectory, Holy Temple, to take a look. Although this lunatic was somewhat incoherent from what he said, it was very likely that he had indeed boarded a ship. However, something unforeseen had happened on the ship in the end. The people on the ship had killed each other, or someone had killed someone on the ship, and this person had survived. However, even the person involved didn't know what had happened on the ship back then. Therefore, he wanted to use the power of the Trajectory Holy Temple to see what had happened on the ship. If this inference was correct, then the power in the Trajectory Holy Temple was very likely the ability to let people see the past. Therefore, this person wanted to use the power of the Trajectory Holy Temple. In other words, it wasn't the power of the Trajectory Holy Temple that made him go crazy, but he had seen what had happened on the ship in the past. As Zhou was pondering over it, the man seemed to wake up from his nightmare. He immediately straightened his body, but he was tied up and couldn't sit up at all. He could only stick to the cow's back, his body as stiff as a stick. "Who are you? What do you want?" The lunatic shouted in horror. "Brother, don't be afraid. We don't have any ill intentions. We were just afraid that you would run around crazily, so we tied you to the cow's back. When the exit opens, we will send you out of the Holy Land. Now that the treatment technology is so good, and with the power of a companion beast, your eyes will definitely be healed." Li Xian didn't care if he could understand him, as he said a lot. The person seemed to sober up a little and wasn't as afraid as before. However, he was still a little agitated as he shouted, "I don't want to go out. Let me go. I want to enter the Trajectory Holy Temple." Zhou and Li Xian exchanged looks and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. This person had been so afraid that he had nearly committed suicide, but now He was clamoring to return to the trajectory, holy temple. They really didn't know what he was up to. Brother, don't be agitated. You just came out of the trajectory, holy temple. Why do you want to enter again? Li Xian asked curiously. I want. The lunatic thought for a long time, but he couldn't figure it out. Then, he suddenly froze and said in a daze, What do I want? What do I want? This person is really crazy. Li Xian shook his head with a bitter smile. Zhou Wen looked at the lunatic with a frown. He really wanted to know about this lunatic, but from the looks of it, it was impossible. This fellow's brain was completely damaged. The lunatic suddenly broke the rope and jumped off the cow's back. He ran in the direction of the trajectory holy temple at a surprisingly fast speed. Zhou Wen and Li Xian failed to react in time. Chapter 214. Xia Bing, Dugu Chuan, and company gathered together with ugly expressions. There were 70 to 80 people from the 6 families who had entered the Holy Land. Now, more than 30 of them had their primordial energy seas crippled by Zhou Wen. This was because some of their primordial energy seas weren't in their lower dantians. Otherwise, the number would have been even higher. Zhou Wen is like another in Tianzhua. If we let him leave the Holy Land, our 6 families' reputation will be gone. John's face was pale, but he was flushed with excitement. So what if we don't let him leave? Do any of you have a way to restrain his companion bird? Xia Bing said coldly. I'm not afraid of those flames, but I'm not Zhou Wen's match alone. This fellow's companion beast is just too powerful. The Yin family has controlled the primordial gold mine for so many years and is already filthy rich. In terms of wealth, they aren't much inferior to us 6 families. From the looks of it, they have invested a lot this time. It's obvious that they are here to smack us in the face, Dugu Chuan said with a sigh. He believed that everything about Zhou Wen had been arranged by the Yin family. If I had known this would happen, I would have made more preparations. In terms of companion beasts, our family isn't inferior to him. It's not impossible to forcefully incubate a few epic companion beasts. At most, we'll just have to pay a small price. Prose was furious and hateful. His primordial energy, wasn't in his lower dantian, so he wasn't crippled. However, being stabbed in the abdomen by Zhou Wen left him feeling terrible. What's the point of knowing? If I had known, I would have cried like a woman and hung myself to get that mythical companion egg from my aunt. How could I have allowed Zhou Wen to be so arrogant? Dugu Chuan said gloomily. Many of the 6 families had produced special physiques. Those special physiques allowed them to explore certain dimensional zones. If their physiques were compatible, they would obtain a mythical companion egg like Zhou Wen at Small Buddha Temple. A few families had obtained mythical companion eggs in the past. However, mythical companion eggs were only at the mortal stage when they hatched. They needed to be fed and evolve bit by bit. As for whether they could advance to the mythical stage, it was still an unknown. Over the years, those who could truly raise a companion egg to the mythical stage were rare even in the 6 families. Dugu Chuan had inherited the Dugu family's body of trajectory, so he had a chance of incubating a mythical pet. However, it wasn't safe enough. Therefore, Dugu Chuan's aunt hadn't given him the mythical egg she had obtained in the dimensional zone. Prose glanced at Xia Bing and said, Xia Bing has the foresight. That calabash should be a mythical companion beast, right? Now isn't the time to talk about this. Let's first think of how to deal with Zhou Wen, Xia Bing said indifferently without answering Prose's question. What else are you thinking about? We don't have any powerful companion beasts that can fight Zhou Wen. It's useless no matter what we think of. In the Holy Land, only one of our 6 families could defeat Zhou Wen, John said. Are you talking about Lance? Xia Bing frowned. He's the only one. John nodded. But didn't you say that Lance had already refused? With his personality, it's impossible for him to take action again, Xia Bing said. That was then, and this is now. Someone in their family has had their essence energy crippled by Zhou Wen. Even if Lance doesn't help us, does he not care about his own blood relatives? John said. Xia Bing and company exchanged looks and felt that John's words made sense. Although that's true, You know Lance's personality. He's especially odd. It might not work. Let's go find Lance and give it a try, Dugu Chuan said as he prepared to get up. Wait a minute. After you find Lance, tell him that Zhou Wen has two mythical pets, John suddenly said. Dugu Chuan and company were slightly taken aback. Although Zhou Wen's companion beasts were powerful, they didn't think in the direction of a mythical pet. They only believed that Zhou Wen had used some special method to incubate an epic companion egg. This was because without a special physique, it was impossible for one to obtain a mythical companion egg, much less hatch one. Zhou Wen wasn't of the Six Families bloodline, so it was impossible for him to have a special physique. How could he have a mythical pet? Therefore, they believed that Zhou Wen's companion beasts were only of high levels and powerful skills. Zhou Wen's bird and fan are mythical companion beasts? Dugu Chuan asked as he stared at John. Is it that important? Isn't it fine as long as Lance is interested? John said with a smile. Dugu Chuan immediately understood and nodded slightly. All right, I think those two pets are indeed extraordinary. They have the looks of mythical pets. When Dugu Chuan led his men to find Lance, Zhou Wen and Li Xian sat in front of the trajectory Holy Temple's door and waited. The blind lunatic had actually rushed into the trajectory Holy Temple again. They wanted to wait for the lunatic to come out and see what was going on. Old Zhou, do you think that lunatic's words are reliable? If it's really as he said, then wouldn't the power in the trajectory Holy Temple allow people to see the past? Li Xian said casually since he was bored. I don't know. I'll only know after I enter. Zhou Wen stared at the door of the trajectory Holy Temple. He was already tempted, but he didn't want to take the risk. He had already searched the entire trajectory Holy Temple, but he didn't find the tiny palm symbol. There was no way for him to download this place into the phone game. Strange, why don't the dimensional zones in the Holy Land have the tiny palm symbol? Zhou Wen was somewhat depressed. If he could download it into the game on his phone, he could enter all the temples without any qualms. I think he's a lunatic. He's definitely spouting nonsense. Think about it. Although the Federation controls the entire Earth in name, it doesn't dare go to the sea, much less go out on a ship. That lunatic is about the same age as us. He's definitely still a student. With his age, how can he take a ship out to sea? Therefore, what he said must be an illusion he saw on the trajectory Holy Temple, Li Xian said. Li Xian's words reminded Zhou Wen that taking a ship out to sea was probably something that happened before the dimensional storms descended. After the dimensional storms, even an aircraft carrier would never return, much less an ordinary tanker. It was impossible for ordinary people to take a ship out to sea. This lunatic was just like them, a young man participating in the trial. At his age, even if his family's elders had the ability to go out to sea, they definitely wouldn't dare take him out. Could it be that the power in the trajectory Holy Temple is just an illusion? Zhou Wen felt that something was amiss after some thought. The anchor symbol on the lunatic's arm had always bothered him. Furthermore, the lunatic had said that he wanted to use the power of the trajectory Holy Temple to see what had happened in the past. From the looks of it, I can only know if that lunatic words are true by entering the trajectory Holy Temple myself. As Zhou Wen was pondering over it, the door to the trajectory Holy Temple slowly opened. The lunatic was slumped inside the door with one hand on the sill. He didn't move at all, and it was unknown if he was dead or unconscious. Chapter 215. Zhou Wen and Li Xian hurriedly went over and pulled the lunatic's hand, hoping to pull him out of the door. When they went over, the two of them were already very careful. They didn't cross the threshold. As long as they didn't cross the threshold, it wouldn't be considered as entering the temple's trial. However, just as Zhou Wen held the lunatic's hand, he felt a strange force coming from the trajectory Holy Temple, forcefully pulling him in. Zhou Wen immediately felt that something was amiss. He and Li Xian had clearly held the lunatic's hand at the same time, but neither of them had crossed the threshold. Why was Li Xian fine, but he was pulled in the door by a force? Li Xian reached out to pull Zhou Wen, but it was already too late. After Zhou Wen was sucked into the door with a bang, the door to the trajectory holy temple automatically closed, isolating Lixian outside. Seeing that he and the lunatic had been locked in the door, Zhou pulled the lunatic and turned to walk to the back. Typically, even if the trial had already begun, one could choose to withdraw. However, when Zhou turned around, he was stunned. There was no stone door behind him. Not only was there no stone door, but there was nothing at a glance. There was only a road that led straight into the distance. At the end of the road was the blue sky and white clouds. Zhou turned his body 360 degrees and immediately realized that he and the lunatic were standing at a crossroads. All four directions were straight roads that led to the horizon. Apart from the roads, there was nothing else but an endless grassland. The temple and the stone walls didn't exist at all. What's going on? Is the test to let us choose a path? But the roads are the same in all four directions. How can we choose? Do you need to give us some hints? Zhou shouted at the sky. There was definitely a creature in the temple controlling everything. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been pulled in. However, Zhou didn't hear any response after waiting for a while. At that moment, the unconscious lunatic woke up. He rubbed his head and sat up. Then, he sized up his surroundings with a puzzled expression. What is this place? The lunatic didn't look crazy as he asked. Haven't you already been in the trajectory holy temple twice? Zhou looked at him with an odd expression. This was because he had clearly blinded his eyes, but they were now intact. This is the trajectory holy temple? Isn't there a ship in the trajectory holy temple? The madman wore a look of surprise as he stared at Zhou suspiciously, as though he was trying to determine if Zhou was telling the truth. You saw a ship when you entered the trajectory holy temple? Zhou felt that something was amiss. If the ship was really an illusion that the lunatic had seen, he reckoned that it would be difficult for him to get anything out of the lunatic. Yes, it's a ship. When the ship was mentioned, the expression on Madman's face began to change again, but fortunately, it didn't explode like before. Zhou hurriedly changed the topic and pointed at the anchor tattoo on his arm. This tattoo of yours is rather interesting. Does it have any special meaning? Madman seemed very confused and subconsciously answered, This was tattooed by my dad when I was young. He was a sailor, and he said that this was the symbol of his ship. When I grow up, I could become a sailor like him and work on his ship. Is there still a profession like a sailor? Zhou asked in puzzlement. According to what he knew, no ship had dared to go into the sea in recent decades. Even if someone did, it would be an epic expert driving a companion beast. There was no need for a ship, much less a sailor. Yes, why not? Our hometown has many fishing boats. We go out to sea every day to fish. However, my dad's ship is a little different. It's a ship that travels long distances. It passes through many countries and sells different goods in different countries. The madman looked much more clear-headed. Wait, did you say countries? Zhou stared at the madman with an odd expression, wanting to confirm if he was fooling him. Countries were a concept before the dimensional storms. After the dimensional storms, there was only the Federation and no countries. Humans had united to survive the calamity. That's right. Is there something wrong? The madman looked at Zhou in surprise as though what he said was only right. Brother, how old are you? Zhou asked. 17. Why are you asking this? The madman asked in puzzlement. Then you must be joking with me, right? After the dimensional storms, how can there be any countries? The sea is filled with dimensional zones. No one dares to go into the sea, much less fish. It's already not bad if they aren't eaten by fish, Zhou said. What do you mean? What federation? What dimensional storms? The way the madman looked at Zhou was the same as how he had looked at him previously. It was as though he was looking at a lunatic. All right, don't tell me that you were born before the dimensional storms. Zhou frowned at the madman, feeling that this person was messing with him. Perhaps he wasn't crazy from the beginning. However, the madman looked at Zhou seriously and said, I don't know what you mean. My name is Alai. I was born in Langyi Town, not far from the sea. I came here At this point, Alai was stunned as though he couldn't remember why he had come here. Zhou didn't know if this person was really crazy or faking it. So he asked, How do you know about the Holy Land and how did you come here? What Holy Land? Isn't this the 6 Tao temples? Alai asked curiously. 6 Tao temples. Zhou was also dumbfounded. He felt like he was communicating with an alien, and he had no idea what the other party was talking about. That's right. It's the 6 Tao temples. This is... Alai realized that he couldn't remember. He rubbed his head, but he still couldn't recall anything. You know that this is the Trajectory Holy Temple, right? Zhou asked again. That's right. This is one of the 6 Tao temples, the Trajectory Holy Temple, Alai answered with certainty. Then do you still remember why you came here? Zhou continued asking. Alai thought for a moment as his expression gradually turned nasty. I seem to remember that I followed Dad on his ship, and then we encountered a storm, and then, at this point, Alai suddenly hugged his head and screamed. Soon, he fell to the ground and kept convulsing. After a while, he fainted again. Zhou checked his body and realized that he wasn't faking it. He had really fainted. His expression turned odd. What's going on with this fellow? Could it be that he really... Impossible. He's only 17 years old. Impossible. Zhou looked at Alai as countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Alai didn't wake up, so Zhou had no choice but to think of a way to leave. However, all he could see was the straight road in 4 directions. Zhou summoned the mutated lotus flower ant and got it to carry Alai in one direction. Chapter 2:16. There was no concept of north, south, east, and west here. Zhou carefully observed for a long time, but he didn't discover any differences in the 4 directions. All he could do was randomly choose one. Now, passing the trial was no longer a consideration for Zhou. All he wanted to do was leave this place as soon as possible. After leaving the Holy Land, he would get the League officials to investigate Alai's origins. Everyone who entered the Holy Land had information records. If he had entered at that time, there would definitely be information on him. If I don't have his information... The corners of Zhou's eyes twitched when he thought of this. The road seemed endless as it extended all the way to the end of the horizon. Zhou walked for more than an hour, but the surrounding scenery didn't change at all. Suddenly, Zhou realized that something was different in front of him. He sped up and continued walking forward. He realized that another intersection had appeared in front of him. It looked no different from the intersection he had set off from. The only difference was that there was an additional stone statue in the middle of the intersection. The stone statue was a 3 to 4 meter tall root. All 4 directions of the root were faces. The stone statue's face that was facing Zhou actually said, "Congratulations, human. You have completed the test. You can become the spokesperson of the Trajectory Holy Temple in the human world." The moment the stone statue said that, Zhou felt a strong sense of disgust from the side of the king. Even his emotions were affected. Zhou suppressed his emotions and looked at the stone face. Sorry, I didn't plan on becoming the spokesperson of the Trajectory Holy Temple. I only accidentally entered this place to bring a friend out. Zhou cursed inwardly. It's clear that you were the ones who forcefully pulled me in. Furthermore, how is this a trial? It's a forced selection. Since you're already here, why don't you think about it a little? Become the spokesperson of the Trajectory Holy Temple in the human world. Not only can you obtain the Trajectory Holy Body, but you can also obtain a mythical companion beast that matches it, the stone face added. Thank you for your kind intentions, but I already have my own goal. The Trajectory Holy Temple isn't my choice. Please open the door and let us leave this place. Zhou increasingly felt that this fellow was up to no good. He had ulterior motives for being so solicitous for no reason. The stone face didn't say anything else. Its originally expressive face slowly stiffened, turning into a lifeless stone statue. Zhou shouted a few more times, but the stone statue didn't react at all. It was as though it was an ordinary stone statue. Zhou thought for a moment before circling around the stone statue and continuing forward. After walking for a while, another intersection appeared in front of him. In the middle of the intersection was still the 4-faced stone pillar. Zhou sized up his surroundings and felt that this was the intersection he had previously passed. He couldn't help but frown slightly, but the stone statue didn't react. All he could do was change directions and continue walking forward. Soon, Zhou realized that no matter which direction he walked in, he would eventually return to the four-faced stone pillar. It was as though this place was an endless samsara. Alai, who was on the mutated lotus flower ant's back, woke up and asked while rubbing his eyes, "Why are we still here?" Zhou looked at Alai and suddenly had a thought. "You previously said that when you entered the Trajectory Holy Temple, there was a ship inside." "Yes, it's a ship. It's identical to the ship my dad works on," Alai answered. "You used to be on your dad's ship, right?" Zhou asked again. "That's right. On the first day after high school graduation, my dad took me on the ship," Alai answered. "Then take a closer look. Have you been here before? Have you seen it before?" Zhou said as he pointed at the four-faced stone pillar. Alai looked at it for a while and answered with certainty, "No, I've never seen it before." After Zhou heard that, he seemed to understand something as he frowned in thought. From Alai's situation, people who enter the Trajectory Holy Temple should be trapped in their memories. However, since Alai hasn't been here before, nor has he seen the four-faced stone pillar, it's very likely that this is my memory. However, I don't think I've been to such a place before, right? Guide City, where Zhou was born, was a plain. Even if there were large tracts of land there, they were all fields. It was impossible for there to be such a large grassland. Zhou was certain that he had never been here before. After pondering for a moment, Zhou suddenly pulled out his bamboo blade and slashed at the four-faced stone statue. The bamboo blade was extremely sharp. When it slashed at the stone pillar, it split the stone statue into two. However, the broken stone statue vanished with a bang. The surrounding roads and grassland vanished as well. When Zhou saw the scene in front of him clearly, he couldn't help but break out into a cold sweat. He was indeed standing at a crossroad. However, this crossroad wasn't built on a grassland, but on a volcanic magma pool. If Zhou hadn't followed the path and stepped onto the grassland, he would probably have fallen into the magma pool. In the middle of the crossroad was a stone platform. On the stone platform floated a black seed. It looked like it was condensed from the night sky, as it emitted a strange and mysterious aura. This aura was similar to the sun god crystal that Zhou had previously obtained, but it was somewhat different. Zhou attempted to grab the seed with his hand, but nothing special happened. The black seed was easily removed by him. Boom! The instant the black seed was plucked by Zhou, the entire temple trembled. The door opened once again, and Zhou saw Li Xian standing outside. He hurriedly left the Trajectory Temple with Alai. Indeed, he saw the Trajectory Temple glow brightly. Many carvings emitted a strange black fog. It was a sign that the Trajectory Temple already had a successor. From now on, the Trajectory Temple would be completely closed until the next Holy Land opening. Old Zhou, don't you have a body compatible with the Sun God Temple? How did you pass the Trajectory Temple's trial? Li Xian looked at Zhou in surprise. I don't know what's going on either. I find it somewhat baffling. Zhou looked at the black seed in his hand and felt that something was amiss. He felt that this black seed had been given to him by the Trajectory Temple and not something he had truly obtained through the trial. At the very least, he wasn't trapped in his memories. Zhou even suspected that the four-faced stone statue's words weren't a test or an illusion. Instead, it was really trying to rope him in. Who cares? It's better to have something than nothing. If the people from the 6 families know that you have directly obtained the recognition of 2 temples, I believe their expressions will be very interesting, Li Xian said with a chuckle. There's nothing to flaunt about. Zhou got Li Xian to watch Alai as he secretly took a picture of the black seed with his phone and sent it into the game. He had a nagging feeling that the Trajectory Temple was strange, so he didn't dare directly absorb the black seed. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.